Chapter 2857. Resplendent Starry Sky, Dragon King of Dragon Palace 3-inch Huh? That young man isn't afraid of Emperor Fengmie at all. Does he have a trump card? Emperor Fengmie seems to be wary of that young man. What's going on? Didn't that young man get severely injured after fighting with the disciples of 8 barons? What's wrong with Emperor Fengmie now? When the surrounding crowd saw Wang Xian standing there casually and seeing the vigilant look on Emperor God Wind Destruction's face, they were slightly shocked and started discussing softly. Behind Wang Xian, Hong Fengyan frowned as she looked at Wang Xian's back. Her eyes were filled with uncertainty. To her, Wang Xian was mysterious, extremely mysterious. But she had tested his strength before. He was weaker than the 6th Order Undying God King when they first met. Now that he was so calm when facing Emperor Fengmie, could he have a trump card? Around them, everyone watched in bewilderment. "Boss Wang, let's run." Seeing this, Invincible muttered under his breath. Wang Xian stared at Emperor Fengmie with a cold look in his eyes. Wang. But at this moment, Wang Xian felt the communication stone plate in the mother nest vibrate. There was a message from the heaven array. "Dragon King, we have sensed your location. 75 seconds. We will be there in 75 seconds. Wang Xian squinted his eyes when he saw the message. The aura around him disappeared. A smile appeared on his face as he stood there calmly. Huh. Seeing the smile on Wang Xian's face, everyone was taken aback. How could he still smile at this moment? Even Emperor God Wind Destruction felt a chill in his heart and revealed a vigilant look. The atmosphere was silent for 10 seconds. After 10 seconds, Wang Xian was still standing there. His smile was gone and he closed his eyes, waiting for the time to come. 10 seconds was a long time for everyone around them. Didn't he want to witness Emperor Fengmie's strength? What's going on? Why is he standing there? Is he preparing for a big move? The surrounding crowd looked at the way he closed his eyes, and a curious look appeared on their faces. It had been 10 seconds, and he was still standing there. Discussions could be heard. Emperor God Wind Destruction, who was at the front, frowned and raised his guard. But another 10 seconds passed, and Wang Xian was still standing there with his eyes closed. What is this guy doing? He was heavily injured when fighting against us, the disciples of 8 Desolation, and now he still wants to fight against us? You must be pretending. 20 seconds have passed. What kind of tricks is this guy playing? Another 10 seconds passed. The group of experts and disciples from 8 Desolates was getting restless. They looked at Wang Xian, who had his eyes closed, coldly. What was this guy doing? Time ticked by. Fuck, is this guy showing off? Why are you standing there without moving? That's highly possible. I think he's just acting cool. It's been half a minute, and he's closing his eyes while facing God Emperor Wind Destruction. Acting cool? I think he's trying to stall for time. He wants to see the power of the 8 Desolation God Emperor? What does he have to know? Another 10 seconds later, there was a commotion in the surroundings. He said that he wanted to experience God Emperor Wind Destruction's strength. Half a minute had passed, but he was still sitting there with his eyes closed. This is too pretentious. It's even worse than invincible combat technique. The group of middle-aged men behind Tianxin looked at Wang Xian blankly and couldn't help but complain. They really thought that this young man would burst out a powerful attack. They didn't expect him to be showing off. God Emperor Wind Destruction stood there with impatience in his eyes. He stared at Wang Xian with murderous intent in his eyes. Just now, he had seen this young man being sent flying out from the depths of Windless Forest Valley. He thought he had a powerful trump card. However, he was still sitting there with his eyes closed. What was the meaning of this? Was he playing with him? God Emperor Wind Destruction stared coldly at Wang Xian. 10 seconds passed in the blink of an eye. Is he playing with us? The burly elder Zhou couldn't help but roar coldly. All eyes were on Wang Xian and the surroundings. At this moment, everyone felt like they were being teased. 40 seconds had passed. If he delayed it for another minute, it would be 1 minute. He was just acting cool with his eyes closed. Is this guy trying to live for a few more seconds? I think so. Is he playing this trick? There isn't any energy fluctuation from him. Is he trying to delay his death? The earlier he dies, the earlier he can reincarnate. What's the use of acting cool here? What a joke. The surrounding people couldn't help but comment as their eyes were filled with ridicule. Lord Wind, behind God Emperor Wind Destruction, the 8 Desolation Protector with the horsetail whisk shouted as he stared at Wang Xian. 10 seconds. If you don't leave in 10 seconds, don't blame me for not showing respect to the Shang Shui Divine Emperor and the Sanctuary. God Emperor Wind Destruction's patience had run out. He stared at Zhan Fa Wudi, Hong Fengyan, and gave his final warning. While they were discussing and talking, more than 10 seconds had passed. Now it was close to 60 seconds. Zhan Fa Wudi, hurry up and come over. Brother Wudi, hurry up and come over. Otherwise, God Emperor Wind Destruction will really take action. Upon hearing God Emperor Wind Destruction's final warning, Tianxin and the rest shouted at him anxiously. Master! Yelu Ying and the rest clenched their fists as they shouted at Hong Fengyan with pale faces. Hong Fengyan stared at Wang Xian with a slight frown. She stood there without saying a word. Cough cough, Boss Wang, do we have any ideas? If we can't, we'll just run. I have a life-saving treasure that my master gave me. Seeing the situation, Zhan Fa Wudi was also anxious as he transmitted his voice to Wang Xian. He had a life-saving treasure with him, but the chances of him escaping from an emperor god were still slim. 68 seconds. Wang Xian didn't reply to Zhan Fa Wudi. Instead, he uttered 4 words plainly. Hee, you guys are really loyal. But that's fine too. Even though we weren't born in the same year and month, we can still die in the same year and month. 10 seconds had passed. God Emperor Wind Destruction swept his gaze across Zhan Fa Wudi, Hong Fengyan, and the rest. Waves of terrifying aura erupted from his body. Wudi, hurry up and leave. Tianxin, who was at the side, shouted in shock. Bluff. God Emperor Wind Destruction said coldly. I've been putting on an act for more than a minute. It's worth it if I can delay my death by a minute. Behind him, the 3 guardians of 8 Desolation commented coldly. At this moment, close to 10,000 people had gathered around them. All of them were looking at Wang Xian with contempt. Initially, they weren't disgusted by this young man. However, when he stood there with his eyes closed and put on an act for more than a minute, the surrounding crowd started to look down on him. Others would at least struggle on their deathbed, but you're just stalling for time? Since you guys aren't leaving, I'll kill you guys first. God Emperor Wind Destruction waved his arm. Wind swords appeared from the wind prison that imprisoned Wang Xian and the rest. 73 seconds. Seeing the appearance of the wind swords, Wang Xian sensed the familiar aura and revealed a smile. Chapter 2858. Resplendent Starry Sky, Dragon King of Dragon Palace 4-inch die. Chilling murderous intent emanated from Emperor God Wind Destruction. He stared coldly at Wang Xian and the group. With a swing of his arm, countless sharp swords flew towards invincible Zhan, Hong Fengyan, and the rest. Fengjian did not attack Wang Xian because he wanted to capture him alive. He wanted to know the secrets in the depths of the windless forest valley. Arg! Nearby, Heaven's Heart covered his eyes with a pale face and exclaimed, Master! Yelu Ying and the rest paled at the sight of the despairing attack. They had no way of defending themselves against such an attack. Hong Fengyan's eyes were extremely solemn. You're asking for it. Boom. Just as the wind swords were about to land on their bodies, just as Hong Fengyan was putting up a series of defenses, a furious voice rang out in the sky. From the right, 2 pitch-black figures with horrifying auras were flying towards them. The wind prison around Wang Xian and the wind swords that were flying towards invincible Zhan, Hong Fengyan, and the rest trembled slightly before collapsing. Her? At this moment, Emperor God Wind Destruction was the first to react. He was alarmed and immediately flew to the right. Rumble, rumble. At this moment, 2 black figures flew towards them without any intention of concealing their auras. Their eyes were filled with violent murderous intent. 2 emperor gods are here. SSS, what's going on? Which force are they from? Seeing the 2 terrifying figures flying over, the surrounding people's expressions changed drastically. Their eyes were filled with terror. 74 seconds. Wang Xian stood there and revealed a smile as he looked at the figures flying over. Behind him, Hong Fengyin widened his eyes in shock. His eyes were beaming with excitement. This, Boss Wang they are? Invincible Fighter looked at Wang Xian with widened eyes that were filled with excitement. Boom, boom, boom. Two figures flew over and revealed themselves before Wang Xian. Dragon King were late. In the next moment, a scene that caused everyone in the surroundings to be dumbfounded and even horrified appeared. The two figures looked at the young man who wanted to kill them, bowed and shouted, "Dragon King, we're late? Dragon King?" His words shocked many people. However, the experts from 8 Desolation, Emperor God Fengmia, and Hong Feng Yin trembled and their eyes were filled with astonishment. It's not too late. Wang Xian revealed a faint smile when he saw the Yamata Naga rushing over. Dragon King, how did you get injured? Who did this? Are they courting death? Dragon King, these are some divine elixirs that we have obtained. Please recover from your injuries first. Sensing Wang Xian's frail body, Orochi immediately flew over and took out some elixir pills. Wang Xian looked at the divine elixir pills that he handed over and was shocked. Looks like the harvest is pretty good. He took out the Void God Emperor rank first rank God pill and placed it in his mouth, turning it into dragon chi to heal his injuries. Hee, this time's harvest is pretty good. By the side, Emosha smiled. His eyes slowly swept across his surroundings as a murderous aura flickered in his eyes. Looks like someone wants to die. As he spoke, his eyes locked onto God Emperor Wind Destruction. Orochi's gaze swept across all the experts and disciples in the 8 Desolations before landing on God Emperor Wind Destruction. Waves of undisguised murderous intent rushed towards them. Cough cough. Sensing the cold murderous intent from Orochi and Emosha, God Emperor Wind Destruction's eyes narrowed. He coughed and his eyes were filled with shock. Dragon Palace? Dragon King? His gaze fell on Wang Xian as he asked with a complicated expression, "There are other Dragon Kings of Dragon Palace in this resplendent starry sky?" Wang Xian looked at God Emperor Wind Destruction and said calmly, "Dragon King of Dragon Palace?" Upon hearing these words, Battle Unrivaled was slightly confused. What's wrong with the Dragon King of Dragon Palace? He had long known that Wang Xian was the Dragon King of Dragon Palace. However, as he had just ended his seclusion for half a year, he had no idea what the Dragon King of Dragon Palace represented in this resplendent starry sky. That was the Dragon Palace, which was now known as the third superpower. And the Dragon King was the leader of Dragon Palace. What kind of superpower is Dragon Palace? Not only him, but the surrounding people also did not have a deep impression of it. The two regions were isolated, and there was no communication between them. Other than experts from some superpowers, many people did not know about the Dragon King of Dragon Palace. Especially people like Tianxin. Dragon King of Dragon Palace. I did not expect him to be the Dragon King of Dragon Palace. How is this possible? Doesn't the Dragon King of Dragon Palace have the strength of an Emperor God? Dragon Palace is one of the top 3 superpowers in the resplendent starry sky. How can he be so young? SSS. He defeated the Dragon Palace that joined forces with the Imperial Court and the Witch Guild? The Dragon Palace that controls the Imperial Star region? The Dragon King of Dragon Palace and the rest are here, and it's this young man. No wonder. No wonder he is so calm and didn't even bat an eyelid in the face of God Emperor Wind Destruction. He is the Dragon King of Dragon Palace. The Dragon King of Dragon Palace. Even though he was severely injured, he did not take God Emperor Wind Destruction seriously. However, at this moment, exclamations of shock were heard from the surrounding. Their bodies trembled and their eyes widened. Some people did not know about the Dragon King of Dragon Palace, but many did. It was especially so after the rise of Dragon Palace 5 years ago. Everyone who got the news was shocked. In that battle, Dragon Palace fought 1 against 2 and did not lose. They pursued the other party for billions of miles. After that battle, 8 Desolation, which was ranked 3rd, was now ranked 4th. The leader of such a superpower was the young man in front, the young man who had been ridiculed by some people and thought was about to be eliminated. The young man who was said to be pretentious. Now, they couldn't help but swallow a mouthful of saliva. This, what the fuck? When Invincible Warrior heard the exclamations around him, he couldn't help but jump up and stare at Wang Xian in front of him. Yeluing and the rest of her senior and junior sisters were also dumbfounded. The Dragon King of Dragon Palace was even more respected than the territorial lord of their sanctuary region. It was no exaggeration to say that Dragon Palace could annihilate their sanctuary region. However, the Dragon King of Dragon Palace was right before their eyes. They had even played with him for a few months. At this moment, even Hong Fengyin widened her eyes. As for Tianxin and the rest, they were even more stunned. Dragon King of Dragon Palace. At the back, the guardian elders and disciples of 8 Desolation were shocked and cold sweat appeared on their foreheads. They were going to deal with the Dragon King of Dragon Palace. Dragon King of Dragon Palace, there must be some misunderstanding between us. On behalf of 8 Desolation and the disciples, I apologize to you. God Emperor Wind Destruction's expression changed. He cupped his fists at Wang Xian and squeezed out a smile. As an 8 Desolation God Emperor, he naturally had some understanding of the strength of Dragon Palace. Overall, Dragon Palace should be stronger than them. He knew that 8 Desolation was in the wrong. Next, he might have to pay a price to make amends. Wang. However, the sky changed all of a sudden. Chapter 2859. Resplendent Starry Sky, Dragon King of Dragon Palace 5 Wang. What's going on? Why is the sky changing? SSS, what is this? A world of 9 colors? Just as Emperor Wind Destruction finished his sentence, the entire region underwent a huge change. The surrounding trees in Windless Forest quietened down as the 9-colored radiance shrouded the space. The trees stopped attacking even if one tried to take action. An independent world seemed to have formed. The 9 types of light enveloped this world, making it look very gentle and not frightening at all. Dragon King. At this time, another figure flew over. Heaven Formation. The changes in this space were also set up by Heaven Formation. He came with Baki Devilish Shah, but he did not show himself. Instead, he set up this formation. This formation only had one purpose, to seal the evolved version of Black Hole Disruption. Once one entered this space, unless one was a second-order immortal king, one could forget about leaving or returning to one's holy kingdom. Another God Emperor from Dragon Palace. The changes in the surrounding space and the appearance of Heaven Formation shocked everyone once again as they turned to him. Just from the aura he exuded, they knew that he was another God Emperor. Seeing the arrival of Heaven Formation and sensing the changes in the surroundings, Emperor Wind Destruction narrowed his eyes as he had a bad premonition. Dragon King, are you all right? Heaven Formation flew over and asked Wang Xian with concern. I'm fine. I suffered some injuries in Windless Forest Valley. Wang Xian shook his head. Injuries in Windless Forest Valley? No wonder this Dragon King did not make a move. Everyone understood what was going on after hearing Wang Xian's words. It's great that you're fine. As Tianjin spoke, his eyes turned to the front and landed on Emperor God Destruction. Fengmia, I really don't know who gave you the courage to kill our Dragon King. Is it that old man Huang? Heaven Formation stared at Emperor Wind Destruction and said coldly, You. Hearing Heaven Formation calling him by his name, Old Man Huang, Emperor Wind Destruction's expression changed. He stared at Heaven Formation with radiance flickering in his eyes. Gradually, his expression turned ugly. You're Heaven Formation God Emperor. As expected, you're not dead, he said with fear in his eyes. Sky Array God Emperor. Behind him, the 3 enforcers, the 2 elders, and the disciples of the 8 Desolation sect were shocked when they heard the name. Sky Array God Emperor. This was a name everyone in the 8 Desolates knew of. This was a humiliation that lasted for tens of millions of years. Back then, Sky Array God Emperor alone fought against more than 10 God Emperors from the entire 8 Desolations and was not at a disadvantage. That battle made Sky Array God Emperor famous. He was known as sweeping across the 8 Desolates in 6 directions. As for the 8 Desolates, they would naturally be his stepping stone to fame. When the surrounding people heard the name Sky Array God Emperor, their expressions changed. It was like thunder piercing the ears. He once fought against the entire 8 wastelands alone. He was incomparably powerful. Hasn't the enmity between you and the 8 desolations already been resolved? Wind Destruction God Emperor looked at 8 Limitless and said with an embarrassed look, "The grudges from thousands of years ago have long been settled. But is it so easy to settle the matter of offending our Dragon King?" Sky Array God Emperor said. His first sentence was relatively calm, but when he said his second sentence, his body surged with intense killing intent. "This is indeed the fault of the 8 wastelands. We are willing to pay the price." Feeling the killing intent from Sky Array, Wind Destruction God Emperor's expression changed slightly as he spoke immediately. He. Price? The price is death. 8 Limitless stared at Wind Destruction God Emperor and roared with chilling eyes. As he finished his sentence, he attacked Wind Destruction God Emperor directly. Devil Fiend, who was by the side, did not hesitate and charged over. What? 8 Limitless Devil Fiend's sudden attack caused Wind Destruction God Emperor's expression to change drastically. The sudden eruption of a battle between God Emperors, shocked the surrounding people as they hurriedly retreated. A few timid people, and those who mocked Wang Xian just now had their eyes glistening. Their bodies trembled slightly and started to turn illusory. However, just as they were about to teleport away, rays of 9-colored light suddenly landed on their bodies, causing their bodies to solidify. Oh no, we are trapped in this space. We can't return to our holy kingdom directly. A panicked voice was heard from a middle-aged man. His words shocked the surrounding people. Sky Array, you have yet to recover to your peak. Dragon King of Dragon Palace, do you really think that the 8 wastelands are afraid of you? Seeing 8 Limitless Devil Fiend attacking him, Wind Destruction God Emperor's face contorted as he bellowed furiously. Even if the Dragon Palace was stronger than them, were they that easy to bully? Wind Destruction God Emperor waved his arm and a huge fan appeared in his hand. As he waved both his hands, a terrifying storm went towards 8 Limitless Devil Fiend. However, just as he waved his attack, a black and white figure appeared behind him. The black and white figure and a sickle-like claw had already landed on his neck. Another sharp claw pierced through his body. What? Wind Destruction God Emperor widened his eyes in horror. His forehead was instantly filled with cold sweat. He could feel his vitality disappearing rapidly. What? Dragon Palace still has another God Emperor. Emperor Wind Destruction was assassinated. Everyone in the surroundings quickly recovered from the panicked middle-aged man's shouts and looked up into the sky. Behind Wind Destruction God Emperor, another God Emperor appeared. His sharp attack had severely injured him. Wang. The figure that appeared behind Wind Destruction God Emperor was none other than Roving Demon. Roving Demon had succeeded in his attack and vanished before Wind Destruction God Emperor could react. In the next moment, he appeared before Wang Xian. Dragon King, Roving Demon respectfully called out. Cough, 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 cough. In the void ahead, Wind Destruction God Emperor held his neck and chest as he coughed. Fresh blood gushed out from his mouth. His face was pale and his eyes were filled with horror as he stared at Roving Demon beside Wang Xian. 8 Limitless Devil Fiend and 8 Limitless Devil Fiend saw that Roving Demon had succeeded and did not continue their attacks. Roving Demon's attack had severely injured Wind Destruction God Emperor. The forces of darkness and light were stirring in his body. If they wanted to kill him, all they had to do was to strike casually. Lord Wind. Oh no, Lord Wind. When the 3 protectors, 2 elders, and the disciples of Ba Huang saw this, their hearts thumped violently. Their faces were as pale as a sheet as they cried out. The 3 protectors immediately flew over while trembling. If you want to kill me, this is the price you have to pay. The price of your life. Wang Xian looked at Wind Destruction God Emperor and said plainly, You. Wind Destruction God Emperor swallowed the elixir pills in big mouthfuls as he pointed at Wang Xian. If 8 Desolation wants to start a war, Dragon Palace will accept it. At this time, Wang Xian interrupted him and continued. Chapter 2860. Resplendent Starry Sky, Dragon King of Dragon Palace 6-inch. If 8 Desolation wants to start a war, Dragon Palace will accept it. When everyone heard this sentence, their bodies trembled, especially the experts and disciples from 8 Desolation. They swallowed their saliva and their eyes were filled with shock and fear. Not long ago, the protector with the horsetail whisk had proudly said that the 8 Desolates must kill him. He had asked them if the Upper Water God Emperor and the Sanctuary wanted to start a war with the 8 Desolates. Now, the Dragon King had returned the same words back to him. If 8 Desolation wants to start a war, Dragon Palace will accept it. These were the words of the leader of Dragon Palace. His words represented the entire Dragon Palace. And now, the Dragon King wanted to kill Emperor God Emperor Wind Destruction. If 8 Desolation wanted to avenge him, Dragon Palace would accept it. When Emperor God Emperor Wind Destruction heard Wang Xian, his body trembled violently and his eyes were filled with fear. He was panicking. When he was severely injured, his greatest reliance was 8 Desolation. Relying on the might of 8 Desolation, Dragon King and the rest were fearful. But now, Dragon King wanted him dead, and he had heard the middle-aged man's exclamation. This space had been sealed. He knew Sky Array God Emperor well. He had participated in the war thousands of years ago. He knew that Sky Array God Emperor could seal a space. Even God Emperors couldn't return to their own God nation instantly. Clearly, this space was sealed too. In other words, he had no way out. Dragon King wants to kill Emperor God Emperor Wind Destruction. When everyone saw this scene, their minds were in a daze, and they stared at it blankly. Who would have thought that this would happen? Who would have thought that this young man was Dragon King? Gulp. The 3 protectors of 8 Desolation and the group of elders and disciples broke out in cold sweat. If they wanted to kill Emperor God Emperor Wind Destruction, what about them? Dragon King, if you dare to kill me, 8 Desolation will not let Dragon Palace off. You and Imperial Court Witchcraft Assembly are mortal enemies. Now that you have offended 8 Desolation, aren't you afraid that we will join forces? Emperor God Emperor Wind Destruction stared at Wang Xian with bloodshot eyes. His expression changed as he growled. That's not something a dead man like you can worry about. If you want to fight, we'll accept, said Wang Xian plainly. He turned to the Orochi and ordered, kill him, kill. These 2 words decided the fate of Emperor God Emperor Wind Destruction. It's the Dragon King. TSK, TSK, TSK. You want to kill our Dragon King? You're courting death. 8 Chi Demon Fiend and 8 Chi Demon Fiend locked onto Emperor God Wind Destruction with eyes filled with murderous intent. Boom. At the next moment, they moved and charged at Emperor God Destruction. No. Wind Destruction God Emperor's face was drenched in cold sweat as he roared. He looked around and wanted to escape. Boom. However, at this time, Orochi and Masha had already sealed off all his escape routes. The terrifying power of darkness had completely engulfed him. No. Feeling the encirclement of death, Wind Destruction God Emperor let out a final roar with a crumbling expression. Bam! The attack engulfed him, and he, who was already heavily injured, instantly lost all signs of life. 8 Desolations, Wind Destruction God Emperor had fallen. Seeing that Emperor God Emperor Wind Destruction was killed, the surrounding people trembled. No, no, no. We, the 8 Baron, will not let you off. We, the 8 Baron, will not let you off. Seeing that Emperor God Emperor Wind Destruction had lost all signs of life, the 3 elders from the 8 Baron shouted in panic and despair. Their figures moved, and they frantically fled outside. There were also some disciples who were trembling and wanted to escape back to their own holy kingdoms. Tisk, TSK, TSK. A bunch of idiots who are courting death. Masha waved his arm, and the dark skeletons attacked them one by one. Arg, arg, arg. Screams were heard as the experts and disciples from the 8 Baron were killed rapidly. Seeing this scene, the surrounding people felt their scalps go numb. Kill them all. An Emperor God and all the other disciples from the 8 Baron were killed by the Emperor God of Dragon Palace. It was so straightforward. There are still a few small fries who are courting death. At this time, Tianjun, who was standing beside Wang Xian, saw an image. The images showed what had happened in this place before they arrived. This is... Invincible's eyes widened as he leaned over to take a look. Hong Fengyan also looked over and recognized that this was the means of a powerful array master. There are still small fries? Orochi flew over and looked at the image with a cold gaze. When the surrounding people heard what Tianzhan and Orochi said, their foreheads broke out in cold sweat. It was especially so for those who had mocked Wang Xian not long ago. Their bodies stiffened and they broke out in cold sweat. All the disciples from the 8 Baron were killed, the small fries in their mouths. Tisk, do you think our Dragon King is someone you can humiliate? At this time, Orochi waved his arm and black lines attacked the surrounding people. No, don't, sir. No. The horrified voices came to an abrupt halt as more than a dozen figures were killed instantly. All right, let's go. Wang Xian looked around and said to Tianzhan and the rest, Yes, Dragon King. Tianzhan nodded. Orochi and the rest immediately kept the surrounding corpses. Wang. Tianzhan waved his arm and the 9-colored space disappeared. Let's go, Invincible. Let's reminisce. You guys come along too. Wang Xian looked to Invincible, Hong Fengyan, and the rest as he spoke. Wahahaha, I, Invincible, am going to be rich. Ha ha ha, Boss Wang, you're too awesome. You're too awesome. The Dragon Palace is too awesome. Invincible, who had been standing at the back, was dumbfounded as he jumped up and down excitedly. Boss Wang, I, Invincible, will be your most loyal follower in the future. He hugged Wang Xian's thigh excitedly and shouted with a straight face. Dragon Palace. Just by listening to the discussions of the surrounding people, he knew how awesome the Dragon Palace was. Moreover, the Dragon King of the Dragon Palace was his boss. In that case, wouldn't he be able to ascend to the heavens? In the future, who would dare to offend him in this resplendent starry sky? Now that he had an Emperor God as his master, he was still very awesome. However, he still had to be wary of the 8 Barons. Now that his boss was the Dragon King, he didn't even need to care about the 8 Barons. You might be getting older, but your IQ hasn't changed. Wang Xian kicked his body and commented speechlessly. Ha ha ha, I, Invincible, have to hug Boss Wang's thigh tightly. Others can't do so even if they want to. Ha ha. Invincible Fighter jumped up and said with a grin. Let's go. Wang Xian patted him on the shoulder and turned to look at Hong Fengyan. Hong Fengyan looked at him and revealed a smile. All right, Dragon King. Wang Xian chuckled. With a swift move, he flew out of the windless forest. Behind him, Orochi, and Roving Demon immediately followed. Yeluing and the rest followed behind in a daze and couldn't react in time. Haha, Tianxin, I'll go and have a chat with Boss Wang Xian first. I'll look for you in a few days. Invincible Warrior waved his hand to the side. Chapter 2861. Tremors in the 8 directions on Brother Woody is going to soar in the world. Wang Xian led the group of people and left. Their figures disappeared immediately. The few young men behind Tianxin broke the silence with their eyes wide open. Woody knows the Dragon King of Dragon Palace and is on such good terms with him. Tianxin's mouth was agape and her face was filled with shock. Her background was equally powerful. She had an Emperor God for a father. As her father's youngest daughter, she was doted on. But her father and Shang Shui Emperor were Emperor Gods without any forces. Compared to the 8 forces in Bedazzling Star, they were still far behind. Not to mention the strength of the Dragon Palace, which was one of the top 3 forces. Who would dare to bully Invincible when he had such a boss? Woody will probably be even more arrogant in the future, Tianxin murmured. Behind her, the few middle-aged men twitched their mouths when they heard this. But they shrunk their heads as they looked in the direction where Woody disappeared. It seemed like they couldn't go against Invincible in the future. Looking at his relationship with the Dragon King of Dragon Palace, it would be easy for Invincible to let the Dragon King or his subordinates teach 1 or 2 people a lesson in the future. One should know that the Dragon King of Dragon Palace was someone who dared to kill an Emperor God of 8 Wilderness. He even declared that if 8 Wilderness were to fight, Dragon Palace would accept it. How domineering was that? Boom. Who would have thought that the young man was the Dragon King? SSS, that casual aura, that faint domineering aura. No wonder he's the Dragon King of Dragon Palace in Bedazzling Star. An Emperor God. We actually saw an Emperor God being killed with our own eyes. Emperor God Fengmi couldn't even put up a fight in front of the Emperor God of Dragon Palace. Invincible is going to soar in the world with the help of Dragon Palace. He's much more powerful than his master, Shang Shui Emperor. I guess he'll be even more arrogant in the future. An Emperor God of 8 wilderness, 3 guardians, and a group of experts have been killed. This is a huge loss for 8 wilderness. Will 8 wilderness fight Dragon Palace? It's hard to say. In the rankings of Bedazzling Star, Dragon Palace is ranked higher than 8 wilderness. But they still have their arch-enemies, Imperial Court and Witch Alliance. The silence on this side was broken. Everyone in the surroundings was discussing in shock. Their eyes were filled with excitement. Today's scene would be the capital for them to brag about in the future. The might of the Dragon King and the fall of a God Emperor. Everything was enough for them to talk for hours. Soon after, the people around him transmitted the information to the communication stone plate. The death of a God Emperor was a shocking matter in the entire 8 Desolation 6 directions. In particular, this God Emperor was killed under the orders of the Dragon Palace's Dragon King. However, the people from Ba Huang are really unlucky. A few of their disciples actually wanted to kill the Dragon King and steal his treasure. They brought this upon themselves. Some people thought to themselves as they flew out of the windless forest. They could already predict that the next tremor would take place in all directions. Do you know what happened in the windless forest? 8 desolate wind exterminating God Emperor has fallen. Dragon Palace God Emperor killed wind exterminating God Emperor. Big news, big news. The disciples of Ba Huang angered the Dragon King of Dragon Palace. The God Emperor experts of Dragon Palace killed all the disciples of Ba Huang. Wind exterminating God Emperor has fallen. And God Emperor has fallen. The might of the Dragon King of Dragon Palace killed Wind exterminating God Emperor, and said that if Ba Huang were to go to war, Dragon Palace would accept it. Even if Wang Xian and the rest flew, it would still take more than 10 hours to get from the windless forest to the planet where they lived. Before Wang Xian and the rest returned to Lanhua Star, the incident in the windless forest had already begun to ferment in all directions. The transmission speed of the communication stone plate was extremely fast. A piece of information instantly spread to all corners of the 8 Desolation 6 directions. At first, some people were doubtful about the authenticity of the information. However, when thousands of experts verified it, the entire communication network of the 8 Desolation 6 directions was instantly boiling. The death of an God Emperor was shocking enough. Moreover, it was an God Emperor from Ba Huang who was killed by Dragon Palace. God Emperors were existences that could suppress a force in every force. Each of them was supreme. Now that an God Emperor had died, it was highly likely that it would lead to a clash between 2 forces. A fall of this level was already enough to ignite a great war. The communication network was in an uproar. The people in 8 Desolation 6 directions gradually understood everything that had happened in the windless forest. While they were scolding the disciples of 8 directions for being stupid and deserving of death, they were also shocked by the might of the Dragon King. However, the might of the Dragon King displeased the disciples of 8 directions. All of them were clamoring to teach the Dragon King of Dragon Palace a lesson. This was 8 directions, not the Imperial Star region of Dragon Palace. After all, this was the home ground of 8 directions. 50% of the people here were disciples of 8 directions. Naturally, there were many voices of dissatisfaction with the Dragon King. Many disciples of 8 directions said that the Dragon King was too arrogant and did not take them seriously. The news has been verified. Wind exterminating has fallen. He was killed by an Emperor God expert from Dragon Palace. Moreover, that guy from Sky Formation has appeared. At the same time, in a hall in 8 directions, 15 figures were sitting in it. 8 directions, the highest known grotto heaven in the entire 8 directions. Now, it was occupied by 8 directions. There were 15 figures, and each of them represented a God Emperor. In the middle, there was an old man. The old man did not sit on a chair, but on a divine deer. The divine deer had 2 huge horns that gave off a mystical glow. At this moment, the 15 of them looked a little embarrassed. An emperor god of 8 directions had been killed, and it had caused a huge commotion. The entire 8 directions was waiting to see how 8 directions would react. If they did not do anything, the other party would think that 8 directions was afraid of Dragon Palace. Once they took action, it would be a huge war, especially when the guy from thousands of years ago was still alive. Although their feud had been resolved and he was not as strong as he was at his peak, if he did not have the confidence to kill Sky Formation, he would recover to his peak sooner or later. Once he recovered to his peak, with the power of Dragon Palace, 8 directions would not be a match for them. The Dragon King is too arrogant. He said that if 8 directions were to start a war, they would accept it. Does he really think that 8 directions is easy to bully? An old man roared with a gloomy face. We have to give the disciples of 8 directions an explanation for Emperor God exterminating's death, and also ourselves. Otherwise, it would be meaningless for us to establish 8 directions. An Emperor God of 8 directions who was on good terms with Emperor God exterminating said. The others also frowned slightly. End of chapter. Chapter 2862. Tremors in all directions descend. The establishment of Ba Huang was the shortest among the 7 great powers of the bedazzling starry sky. They were not sect-like, nor were they family-like. They were built by experts who entered the 8 desolates in search of opportunities. The original purpose of the 8 desolates was to occupy more resources and treasures in the 8 desolates in 6 directions. Later on, he became a powerful existence. The death of Emperor God Emperor Wind Destruction did not make the group of Emperor God sad, because Wind Destruction God Emperor wasn't related to them by blood, and they didn't have deep feelings for each other. However, it was precisely because of this that they had to speak up for the deceased Emperor God Wind Destruction. If Emperor God Feng Miao was killed this time, wouldn't it be the same if they were killed in the future? No one avenged them? This was something that all the God Emperors had to consider. This was how the fox mourned the death of the rabbit. However, if they wanted revenge, they would have to face the Dragon Palace. They already knew the strength of the Dragon Palace. When they were pushed to the 4th place in the 8 wilderness, they had some understanding of the Dragon Palace. After all, the Imperial Court and Success Shaman Association had 2 second-order God Emperors in their ranks. This was especially true for the mages of the Shaman Society. Their combat power was close to unparalleled amongst second-order God Emperors. The Dragon Palace's strength was evident from the fact that they could not defeat the Dragon Palace under such circumstances. With our strength, we are no match for the Dragon Palace if we were to fight. The old man on the right revealed a contemplative expression and said with a solemn expression, "We don't have a powerful formation master among us, nor do we have such a treasure. Even if the Dragon King were here with us, it would be difficult for us to kill him." Another old man said with a frown, "The ability to seal a space was something only a powerful array master could do. If the heavenly formation could do it, so could the Shaman Association. Powerful forces would all have a type of spatial locking treasure that could also do this. But the 8 wastelands did not have such a treasure. If they failed to detain the Dragon King, they could easily escape and take revenge on them. Once all the God Emperors of the Dragon Palace came, it would be hard for the 8 desolation to resist. If you want to avenge Feng Miao, there's only one way." At this moment, the old man riding on the divine deer spoke. When he opened his mouth to speak, everyone around him looked over with a hint of respect in their eyes. The old man was the founder of Ba Huang. He was known as Emperor God Huang. "He's here." Suddenly, Emperor God Desolation changed the topic. He smiled faintly and looked outside. The group of God Emperors was bewildered as they looked ahead. Reporting to Lord God Emperor Desolation, "A God Emperor from the Imperial Court has come to visit." An Octaterra protector walked over and reported to him respectfully, "Imperial Court." The eyes of the God Emperors in the hall flickered. "There's also the Witchcraft Association." They looked at each other. One of the 8 Baron God Emperors smiled. "Call the God Emperor of the Imperial Dynasty over." God Emperor Desolation ordered his subordinates. Yes. The protector who came to report immediately flew outside. "Greetings." Emperor God Desolation. Very soon, an old man entered the hall. His gaze swept across the hall and a smile appeared on his face. You must be Emperor God Shenwu. Please take a seat. Emperor God Desolation looked at Emperor God Shenwu of the imperial court and smiled. Thank you, Emperor God Desolation. Emperor God Shenwu cupped his fists and sat by the side. I wonder why Emperor God Shenwu is here today? Emperor God Desolation looked at him and asked plainly, Lord God Desolation, I shall be straightforward. I have already reported the conflict between Ba Huang and Dragon Palace to our Emperor Lord and the Witchcraft Association. Now, I can represent the Imperial Court and Witchcraft Association. Lord God Desolation, you should be able to guess why I am here. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Dragon Palace is so arrogant and doesn't care about Ba Huang. We, the Imperial Court and Witchcraft Association, have a deep hatred for each other. I am here to represent the Imperial Court and Witchcraft Association in hopes of forming an alliance with Ba Huang to deal with Dragon Palace. Emperor God Shenwu of the Imperial Court said, We are not at the stage where we will fight to the death with Dragon Palace. Emperor God Desolation looked at him and said after a moment of silence, Lord God Desolation, the Dragon King has gone overboard by ordering his subordinates to kill an Emperor God of Ba Huang. Emperor God Shenwu furrowed his brows when he heard that. We need to discuss the matter of joining forces with you again. Emperor God Desolation said plainly, This, all right. As long as Ba Huang agrees, the Imperial Court and Witchcraft Association will welcome Ba Huang to join us anytime. Emperor God Shenwu stood up, frowned and cupped his fists before flying out. Lord God Desolation, why don't we agree directly? Seeing the Emperor God of the Imperial Court leave, an Emperor God asked, Once we join their alliance, it will mean that we have become enemies with Dragon Palace. There might be no room for negotiation. Emperor God Desolation pondered deeply. Go and find out the location of the Dragon King. Emperor God Fengmia, get the Dragon Palace to give us an explanation. He turned around and said to the surrounding Emperor Gods, Lord God Desolation, what if the Dragon King doesn't know what's good for him? An Emperor God asked with glistening eyes. If he doesn't know what's good for him, we have to give the disciples of Ba Huang and Fengmia an explanation. As Emperor God Desolation said, his eyes shone with coldness. Yes. The group of Emperor Gods nodded. Order the disciples to find out the location of the Dragon King. Also, announce that the Dragon King of Dragon Palace has to give us an explanation for annihilating Ba Huang God Emperor. Emperor God Desolation's voice was heard in the hall before he disappeared. The rest of the Emperor Gods stood up and let out a cold aura. Dragon Palace had to give an explanation for annihilating the Emperor God of Ba Huang. Otherwise, where would the face of Ba Huang be? How would the disciples of Ba Huang look at their forces? Hong. News from Ba Huang. We have to give them an explanation for the death of Emperor God Fengmia and the disciples of Ba Huang. If Ba Huang doesn't do anything after killing an Emperor God, it would be embarrassing. As expected, Ba Huang has made a statement. An Emperor God is the pillar of a force. It won't be easy to settle the matter after he was killed. If Dragon Palace doesn't give Ba Huang a satisfactory explanation, there will be a fight. Not long after, an announcement came from the communication network of the Desolation Six Directions. There was only a short sentence. Dragon King of Dragon Palace has to give us an explanation for annihilating Ba Huang God Emperor. There was no threat in the sentence, but it showed Ba Huang's decision. An explanation. Chapter 2863. The people in 8 Desolation weren't too surprised by the announcement. They would have been surprised if there wasn't such an announcement. Dragon Palace was strong, but they weren't strong enough to kill an Emperor God and remain silent. Moreover, this was 8 Desolation's territory. Even if a war broke out, 8 Desolation had the geographical advantage. Even if Dragon Palace accepted the challenge, they wouldn't send all their experts to fight against 8 Desolation, because it was too far away. Even an Emperor God would need a few months to travel from Imperial Star Region to 8 Desolation. Moreover, Dragon Palace had 2 archenemies, the Imperial Court and the Witch Union. Wang Xian didn't know about the communication network. Even if he knew, he wouldn't have cared. Boss Wang, You are too awesome. Your dragon palace is too awesome. You actually killed the Imperial Court and unified the Imperial Star region. Blue Moon Star, Hong Fengyan's residence. Wang Xian and the rest had just landed when Invincible couldn't help but comment. We had no choice. The Imperial Court wanted to attack us, and we had to chase them away. Wang Xian smiled faintly. As expected of Boss Wang. You are so awesome. I, Invincible, am still far from you. Invincible shook his head. He couldn't be arrogant in front of Wang Xian. It was the same in the past, and it was the same now. I didn't expect to meet the Dragon King of Dragon Palace. Thank you for your guidance. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to take this step. Beside him, Hong Fengyan bowed to Wang Xian gratefully, thinking about how she had wanted to take him as her disciple in the past, thinking about how she had wanted to guide him, thinking about it now, she blushed. This is fate. Wang Xian smiled at her. This is my opportunity. Otherwise, I might not have been able to break through to the Emperor God realm. Hong Fengyan said gratefully to Wang Xian. Without Sacred Feather and Wang Xian to simulate the celestial slaying gourd, she might not have broken through. The threshold was too high. I didn't expect King. You are the Dragon King. I couldn't tell at all. Yellow Ying and the rest stood behind their master and stole glances at Wang Xian from time to time. Haha, what will it be like? Wang Xian chuckled. The group came to the pavilion and sat down. Now that you've taken this step, how are the preparations of the Void Divine Kingdom? Wang Xian looked at Hong Fengyan and asked. The materials are almost done. The sanctuary will prepare some for me. If nothing goes wrong, I will be able to become an Emperor God within a few months. Hong Fengyan said with a smile. I'll give you a wind jade. It'll be of great benefit to the Void Divine Nation. As Wang Xian spoke, he took out a First Order God Emperor Realm wind jade and passed it to him. In the Windless Forest Valley, Wang Xian had obtained dozens of First Order God Emperor Realm wind jades and a Second Order God Emperor Realm wind jades. There was no harm in giving them to her. The reason why Wang Xian gave it to her was because of what she had done not long ago. He was willing to offend the Octaterra God Emperor to protect him. This was a friend he could make. There's no need for that. I can't accept your gifts, Dragon King. Hong Fengyan was slightly taken aback as she asked in astonishment. It's okay. I have a lot of these things. You can consider it as making friends. Wang Xian smiled and suspended the wind jade in front of her. Looking at the First Order God Emperor Realm wind jade, Hong Fengyan's eyes sparkled. All right then. I already owe the Dragon King many favors. One more won't make a difference. She smiled and kept the wind jade. Boss Wang, my master is coming. Someone told my master that I got into trouble, and he's looking for me. When he heard the news, he wanted to pay a visit to you. At this time, Invincible looked at the communication stone plate in his hand and said to Wang Xian. Sure. Wang Xian smiled and nodded his head. Cough cough, Boss Wang, give me some face later. Let me hold my head high in front of my master. Invincible moved closer to Wang Xian and whispered, All right, it's been a long time. Let me give you a gift. Wang Xian smiled. With a wave of his hand, the dragon instrument landed at the side. Wow, Boss Wang, what's this? Invincible's eyes lit up when he heard that Wang Xian wanted to give him a gift. Is this a mecha? It's a type of creature that has been refined. You can enter and control it. It can unleash the strength of a peak immortal god king. Wang Xian said plainly. Now that the Dragon Palace had produced celestial emperors, such a treasure wasn't that important anymore. However, a treasure like the dragon instrument was priceless in the entire resplendent starry sky. As Wang Xian spoke, he waved his arm and a drop of Invincible's blood landed on the dragon instrument, allowing it to sense it. Wow, I can control it to unleash the strength of a peak immortal god king? Invincible's eyes lit up. Waves of information came from the dragon instrument as he flew over excitedly. He landed on the head of the dragon instrument and integrated his body into it. Boom. In the next moment, a strong aura emanated from the dragon instrument. This was the aura of a peak immortal king. Moreover, it was much stronger than an ordinary peak immortal king. Ha ha ha, I'm invincible. Awesome. Invincible controlled the dragon instrument and jumped around. The scene was hilarious. Shangshui is here to pay a visit to the Dragon King and to see my stubborn disciple. At this time, a voice was heard in the courtyard. Please come in. Wang Xian and the rest looked out and said, Wang. In the next moment, an old man with a long white beard flew in. When he saw Wang Xian, he immediately bowed. Greetings, Dragon King. The long-bearded old man bowed respectfully. Although he was an emperor god, he still had to be respectful to the leader of the third major force in the resplendent starry sky. What's a stubborn disciple? He's an unparalleled genius. Be more respectful when you speak. Before Wang Xian could speak, Invincible controlled the dragon instrument and spoke to the Shangshui God Emperor with his head held high. Huh. The Shangshui God Emperor was taken aback as he looked at the dragon instrument in shock. From the dragon instrument, he could feel the aura of a peak immortal king. Ha ha ha, master. How is it? Isn't it awesome? Boss Wang gave it to me. Ha ha ha. Seeing his master sizing him up, Invincible didn't dare to fool around anymore. He flew out from the dragon instrument's head and shouted excitedly, Peak immortal king. Ha ha. He was dancing with joy. The Shangshui God Emperor looked at his disciple. When he saw the dragon instrument, he was shocked and his face turned black. He waved his arm, and Invincible flew towards him uncontrollably. Stubborn disciple. The Shangshui God Emperor snorted, grabbed the back of his neck, and pressed him down. Hee, I've made a fool of myself in front of the Dragon King. He smiled embarrassedly at Wang Xian. The error-free chapters of the Invincible Divine Dragon Cultivation System will continue to be updated on Mobile Game Bar. There will be no advertisements on the website. Please collect and recommend Mobile Game Bar. Please collect. Invincible Divine Dragon Cultivation System Mobile Game Bar updates the fastest. Chapter 2864. Wonderful Pop-Up Window Free Reading. Hee. I understand Invincible Zhan's character very well. Wang Xian smiled when he saw unrivaled battle mage being restrained by his master and unable to move his neck. Shangshui God Emperor chuckled as he lifted Invincible up. More than 10 hours ago, when he learned that his disciple had offended the 8 Wilderness God Emperor, his expression changed drastically as he flew towards the windless forest. However, before he could fly for half an hour, he received news that the Dragon King of Dragon Palace had killed the 8 Wilderness God Emperor. When he learned from the various messages on the communication network that his disciple was on good terms with the Dragon King of Dragon Palace, he was stunned. His disciple had called the Dragon King of Dragon Palace boss? They were on good terms? This caused him to be extremely astonished. Now that he saw the special creature beside his disciple, he was pleasantly surprised. As an emperor god, he could naturally sense that this was an immortal king pinnacle supreme treasure. Moreover, it was a supreme treasure that could be controlled. Such a treasure was priceless. At least he didn't have such a treasure. Since the Dragon King could give it to his disciple, one could imagine their relationship. And since his disciple was on good terms with the Dragon King of Dragon Palace, he could also benefit from it. After all, it was the third major force in bedazzling starry sky. Master, I was just joking with you. Please put me down. Invincible Zhan's face was flushed from being grabbed by the Shangshui God Emperor. Yellow Ying and the other brothers couldn't help but laugh as they saw Invincible Zhan. The Shangshui God Emperor acknowledged and threw him aside. Hee. Invincible Zhan stood up with a smile, lifted his head slightly, and looked at his master. Come, master, let me introduce you. This is the Dragon King of Dragon Palace, my boss. Boss Wang and I have been through life and death together. Back then, we were the supreme talents that stirred up the world. He said this with slight pride, as if he was very awesome. Hee. Shangshui God Emperor, please take a seat. Wang Xian smiled at him and gestured with his hand. All right. Although his disciple seemed to be acting cool, the Shangshui God Emperor was in a good mood. You must be the protector of the sacred region? I heard that you already have 1 foot in the God Emperor realm. Congratulations. The Shangshui God Emperor sat in his chair and looked at Hong Fengyan. He thought of the message on the communication network and immediately cupped his hands to congratulate her. Thanks to your help, Dragon King, I was able to take this step. Hong Fengyan smiled and cupped her fists in response. I didn't expect this stubborn disciple of mine to get to know the Dragon King. He's really lucky. The upper water god emperor sighed slightly and continued. Haha, when I first came to the Imperial Star region, I met him on a continent. Speaking of which, it has been quite a few years. Wang Xian chuckled and started chatting with his invincible combat technique master. The upper water god emperor was clearly more talkative than Hong Fengyan. The group of them sat there and chatted for more than 10 minutes. By the way, Dragon King, you killed the Wind Destruction Emperor, which caused a great shock in the vast universe. I wonder if the Dragon King knows about the statement that the vast universe made on the communication network? 10 minutes later, the upper water god emperor suddenly spoke. He frowned slightly, and his face was full of solemnity. Statement? What statement? That Wind Destruction Emperor didn't know his place and wanted to kill Boss Wang. What does the vast universe dare to do now? If he dares to do so, the army of the Dragon Palace will crush them directly. The Dragon Palace is much stronger than the vast universe. Invincible Combat Technique, who was sitting at the side, said furiously when he heard this. Shut up. The upper water god emperor glared at him when he heard him. Invincible Combat Technique twitched his mouth and didn't dare to speak. They said they want the Dragon Palace to give them an explanation. The upper water god emperor continued to speak to Wang Xian. Explanation? Wang Xian's face turned cold. He smiled coldly and shook his head. Ignore them. The upper water god emperor smiled speechlessly when he heard Wang Xian's reply. Given their control over the vast universe, they should be able to find us soon. Dragon King, you still have to be careful. The upper water god emperor pondered for a while and reminded him, I'll be returning to the Imperial Star region soon. If the vast universe really wants to start a war with the Dragon Palace, I'll be back soon. Wang Xian said plainly. The reason why Wang Xian was so confident was because of the resources he had in his hands. He had gained a lot from this trip. Not only would he get a significant improvement, but he would also get the 9 Wind Divine Dragons. I might have to return to the sanctuary in a while. After I improve my strength, you can let me know if you need anything, Dragon King. Moreover, our star regions are connected. The distance isn't too far. When the time comes, I'll go to the Dragon Palace to thank the Dragon King personally. Hong Fengyan looked at Wang Xian and said, Sure, we're not far from each other. When you become an Emperor God, there should be a ceremony. I'll make a trip to the sanctuary then. I'd like to build a teleportation array on a planet in the sanctuary. It would be closer for me to travel to the vast universe in the future. Wang Xian said to her, Sure, we'll naturally welcome the Dragon King. Hong Fengyan nodded her head. Rumble, rumble, rumble. Just as they were talking, mighty auras came from the sky above the planet. Dragon King of the Dragon Palace, come out. A voice exploded in the sky. Huh, that's the Emperor God of the vast universe. The Dragon King of the Dragon Palace is on our planet. The vast universe is going to demand an explanation from the Dragon King of the Dragon Palace. There might be a fight. On the Lanua planet, everyone was taken aback as they felt the mighty auras. They quickly lifted their heads and looked into the sky. Under the pavilion, Wang Xian squinted his eyes. The Shangshui Emperor frowned immediately. Dragon King, 12 Emperor Gods, and a group of experts from the vast universe. Old Man Huang isn't here. He. At this time, the heavenly formation reported to Wang Xian from the side. 12 Emperor Gods. They really think highly of us. Orochi chuckled as black light flickered in his eyes. Wudi, leave with your master first. Bring your disciples back to the sanctuary first. Wang Xian stood up slowly and said to the Shangshui Emperor and Hong Fengyan, In that case, we'll hide here for a while. The Shangshui Emperor frowned and said to Wang Xian, Okay. Wang Xian nodded his head. You guys return to the sanctuary first. I'll be back soon. Hong Fengyan looked at her disciples and instructed, I'll take a look here. She looked at Wang Xian and said, Sure. Wang Xian pondered for a moment before nodding his head. He looked into the sky. I'd like to see what kind of explanation the vast universe wants me to give them. He chuckled. With a swift move, he flew up into the sky. Beside him, roving demon of the eight-limbed devil fiend sky formation, followed closely behind. Chapter 2865. The Price. Look, there are a dozen emperor gods from 8 Desolation. Many disciples from 8 Desolation are here too. They are obviously testing Dragon King and the rest. Dragon King and the rest are all emperor gods. It might be difficult to keep them here. I wonder if Dragon King and the rest will show up. 12 towering figures hovered in the sky above Blue Moon Star as they stared coldly at the ground below. Behind them, there were tens of thousands of experts from 8 Desolation. They were all Divine King experts, and they exuded a cold aura. As they hovered there, a suffocating pressure engulfed Blue Moon Star. At this moment, everyone raised their heads in unison and looked up into the sky with reverence on their faces. As people from 8 Desolation, they knew how powerful 8 Desolation was. Wang Xian looked calmly at the people from 8 Desolation from below. His figure flickered and appeared directly above them. Wang. Sky Array 8 branches stood behind him. Dragon King is here. The 12 emperor gods from 8 Desolation squinted their eyes when they saw this figure. Look, Dragon King is going over. Dragon King is really going over. SSS, is there going to be a fight? Below, everyone was shocked when they saw Wang Xian and the rest flying over. I wonder why you guys from 8 Desolation are looking for me? Wang Xian looked at the 12 emperor gods from 8 Desolation. Both parties hovered and looked at each other. He was the first to speak. Dragon King, why ask when you already know the answer? An emperor god in the middle said coldly, He, we really don't know. If there's nothing, don't disturb us. Orochi stared at the Octoterra god emperor and smiled. Humph, Fengmia was killed by you guys. An emperor god shrouded in flames questioned furiously. Courting death. Wang Xian said plainly. Courting death. Does Dragon King know that he is an emperor god from 8 Desolation? A middle-aged emperor god stared at Wang Xian and the rest with a cold look in his eyes. So what if he knows? Your disciples from 8 Desolation want to kill our Dragon King. What a joke. It's good enough that we didn't find trouble with you. Sky Array looked at them in disdain. The Dragon Palace is so powerful. I have a bad feeling about this. On the Cerulean planet, when the crowd heard their conversation, their pupils shrank and their faces were filled with surprise. The Dragon Palace was too domineering. They couldn't care less about the 8 Desolation God Emperors and experts. So you're saying that our 8 Baron God Emperor was killed and you're not going to give us an explanation? The Octoterra God Emperor's auras slowly rose as they asked expressionlessly, What explanation do you want? Wang Xian smirked as he looked at them. What price? Take out 5 First Order God Emperor Realm Supreme treasures, and no one from your Dragon Palace will ever step into the 8 Desolates. An 8 Desolation God Emperor said coldly, If the Dragon King doesn't agree, then we can only make the Dragon Palace pay the price in our own way. I'm afraid you can't afford the price. The moment one of the Celestial Emperors finished speaking, another Celestial Emperor beside him clearly didn't want to waste his breath on him. Haha, our Dragon Palace can't afford it. What's the price? Wang Xian chuckled as he asked them calmly, Dragon King, don't be too arrogant. Don't offend too many people. If your Dragon Palace doesn't give us a satisfactory explanation for Fengmia's death, our 8 Desolates won't be bullied so easily. If your Dragon Palace doesn't mind having another enemy like the Imperial Court Witch Union, our 8 Desolates won't mind either. The 8 Desolates God Emperor in the center said coldly. So what if my Dragon Palace killed Emperor Fengmia? As for having another enemy, I really don't care. I really don't mind. I've said it before. If your 8 Desolates wants a war, our Dragon Palace will accept it. Wang Xian stared at them, kept the smile on his face, and said coldly, 8 Desolates. Do you really think that our Dragon Palace is afraid of you? I alone could wipe out your 8 Desolates tens of thousands of years ago. Even if I haven't recovered to my peak, I still don't put you in my eyes. Our Dragon Palace doesn't put you in our eyes either. Price? I want to see who will pay the heaviest price in the end. Tianjin stood by the side and roared at them with disdain. Ha ha ha, great. Since the Dragon Palace doesn't put us in their eyes, let's have a taste of the Dragon Palace's strength. Let's see what the Dragon Palace has to put us in their eyes. Boom, boom, boom. Hearing the conversation between Wang Xian and Tianjun, an 8 Desolates God Emperor laughed hysterically. At the same time, an incomparably powerful aura burst forth from his body and undisguised murderous intent swept over. Since we're enemies, Dragon King, Tianjun, get out of 8 Desolates immediately. Otherwise, we'll leave you here forever. Get lost. One of the 8 Wilderness Emperor gods had a huge axe in his hand. He raised the axe and slammed it towards Wang Xian and the rest. Around him, the other 11 god emperors also took out their weapons and were filled with violent murderous intent. Get lost. They roared and launched a barrage of attacks at Wang Xian and the rest. Get out of our 8 Desolates. Behind them, the god kings of the Octaterra roared out as well. Blanketing energy surged towards where Wang Xian and the others were. SK, go back. Seeing their attacks, Wang Xian squinted his eyes and disappeared gradually. Hee, wash your heads. It won't be long before we chop them off for you. 8 Devilish Devil and Tianjin laughed and disappeared soon after. Hong Fengyan, who was a distance away, frowned and disappeared instantly. Boom, boom, boom. Waves of terrifying energy bombarded the place where Wang Xian and the rest disappeared. The vast energy caused the blue moon planet below to tremble slightly. SSS, the Dragon Palace and 8 Desolates have completely fallen out. The Dragon Palace is too arrogant. They don't put the 8 Desolates in their eyes at all. The Dragon King and the rest have left and returned to the Imperial Star Domain. The God Emperors of the Dragon Palace are really arrogant. How dare they ask us to wash our heads? TSK, they have made so many enemies. It's only a matter of time before they are eliminated. Many people in the Blue Moon planet commented coldly. From today onwards, no one from the Dragon Palace is allowed to step into 8 Desolates. Once they do, all the disciples of 8 Desolates will be killed without mercy. Seeing Wang Xian and the rest leave, the God Emperors of 8 Desolates scanned their surroundings coldly. One of the God Emperors ordered loudly, "Disciples of the Dragon Palace, kill without mercy." The disciples of 8 Desolates roared. Chapter 2866. A murderous roar reverberated in the sky above Blue Moon Planet. This started the conflict between 8 Desolation and Dragon Palace. Everyone looked at the Emperor gods and experts from 8 Desolation in awe. Gosh, Boss Wang declared war on 8 Desolation. That's too fierce. Invincible looked up at the sky and couldn't help but comment when he heard the murderous roar. Shangshui God Emperor frowned slightly. Dragon Palace was enemies with 8 Desolation. Invincible was on good terms with Dragon King of Dragon Palace. This wasn't a good thing for them. Let's go. Keep a low profile when we meet experts from 8 Desolation in the future. Emperor Shangshui patted Invincible's head and reminded before leaving with him. As an Emperor God, 8 Desolation didn't dare to find trouble with him. From today onwards, no one from Dragon Palace is allowed to step into 8 Desolation. Once they step in, all disciples from 8 Desolation will kill them. Very quickly, what happened on Blue Moon Planet spread throughout 8 Desolation. This news shook the entire 8 Desolation. Very quickly, 8 Desolation released a message on the communication network. Once all members of Dragon Palace entered their territory, they would kill them. This meant that 8 Desolation and Dragon Palace had completely collapsed. Many people had already expected this situation. However, they were still a little surprised by the news that came from the Blue Moon Planet. Dragon King and the others were very domineering and didn't give any face to 8 Desolation. Even before they left, Emperor God of Dragon Palace made everyone from 8 Desolation wash their heads. This caused many disciples from 8 Desolation to scold them on the communication network. Even though Dragon Palace became famous after the battle, 8 Desolation was only second to Dragon Palace. Dragon Palace was so arrogant and didn't respect them at all. This displeased the disciples from 8 Desolation and they insulted Dragon Palace. Emperor God Desolation, Emperor God Shinwu of Imperial Court is here to greet you. At the same time, In a palace on 8 Desolation, 15 Emperor gods were in the main hall. An 8 Desolation protector entered and reported respectfully. "Let him in." Emperor God Desolation, who was sitting on divine deer, said faintly. "Greetings, Emperor God Desolation." Very soon, Emperor God Shen Wu of the imperial court entered the hall again. There was a smile in his eyes as he bowed respectfully.
Yes.
Emperor God Desolation nodded and looked at him. "Lord Emperor God Desolation, I heard that the Dragon Palace isn't willing to take responsibility for the death of Emperor God Wind Destruction, and they are extremely arrogant towards the 8 Desolations. I represent the Imperial Court and the Witchcraft Association to invite the 8 Desolations to stand on the same side as us." Emperor God Shenwu said directly. "Our hatred has not reached the point where you will fight to the death with him." Emperor God Desolation looked at him and said plainly, "An Emperor God was killed. This is a huge grudge. However, compared to the grudge between the Imperial Court and the Shaman Association, it might be a little lighter. Against the Dragon Palace, we don't need to mobilize all our forces. We are very clear about Dragon Palace's power. As long as Emperor God Desolation assists us, we are confident that we can inflict heavy damage on Dragon Palace. If 8 Desolation were to send out more power, we are confident that we can destroy them completely." Emperor God Shenwu said confidently. Although they had suffered a crushing defeat in the last battle, they had a clear understanding of the Dragon Palace's strength. If they could have an additional second-order God Emperor on their side, they would have a 100% chance of defeating the Dragon Palace. They had caused huge losses to the Dragon Palace. With a few more God Emperors, they were confident that they could completely destroy the Dragon Palace. "Oh?" Emperor God Desolation raised his eyebrows. "We can guarantee that no one from 8 Desolation will suffer any losses." Emperor God Shenwu continued. "Dragon Palace is so stupid. Would they not think of our alliance?" Emperor God Desolation said plainly. "Lord God Desolation, rest assured. Based on my guess, 8 Desolation and 6 Directions are far away from Dragon Palace and even further away from Heavenly Witch region. They might not know that I am here. If I am not here, there is almost no possibility of us working together. There is another possibility. Dragon King is with a disciple of the Holy Region. We have to investigate if the Dragon Palace is related to the Holy Region." Emperor God Shenwu said. "As for the details of our cooperation, we will discuss it with Sorcerer Monarch in the future." Emperor God Desolation pondered before saying, "Yes, Emperor God Desolation." Emperor God Shenwu revealed a smile. He clasped his hands and left. "Lord Desolation, if we work together with Imperial Court Sorcerer Association, we can easily destroy the Dragon Palace. We will let them know the price of offending us." After Emperor God Shenwu left, an 8 Desolation God Emperor said coldly, "We have to plan in detail for such a matter. We cannot make a wrong move." Emperor God Desolation said plainly. The other God Emperors nodded faintly. This wasn't a small matter. It was related to the life and death of a powerful force in dazzling starry sky. Before they were confident, it was best for 8 Desolation not to engage in a life-and-death battle. However, to the God Emperors, if they worked together with Imperial Court Sorcerer Association, they had at least a 90% chance of destroying the Dragon Palace. After all, they were one of the 3 major forces in dazzling starry sky. If they couldn't destroy the Dragon Palace, it would be too heaven-defying. "The Dragon Palace is too arrogant," Emperor God Desolation murmured. According to the information leaked by the experts in 8 Desolation, 8 Desolation God Emperor said that the Dragon Palace will pay a heavy price for killing 8 Desolation God Emperor. Before long, a piece of news spread through the communication network in 8 Desolation. 8 Desolation did not make any further statements. This was like a rumor, and not many people believed it. Everyone in 8 Desolation was discussing it. "My harvest this time isn't bad. After nurturing all these sacred feathers, my strength should be able to improve." At this moment, Wang Xian had been back to the Dragon Palace in the faraway Imperial Star Domain. Sitting on the dragon throne, Wang Xian smiled as he looked at his harvest. He had obtained all 49 sacred feathers and 42 wind jades. One of them was a second-order Void God Emperor. Other than these, there was also a God Emperor corpse and 3 Peak God King corpses. With these corpses, the Dragon Palace could have one more God Emperor. Prime Minister Turtle, call the 9-wind divine dragons over. Wang Xian instructed Prime Minister Turtle. Yes, Dragon King. Prime Minister Turtle answered immediately. Roar, roar. Greetings, Dragon King. Soon, the 9-wind divine dragons arrived at the Dragon King Hall. They had green dragon scales and huge dragon wings. They were the only divine dragons with dragon wings in the Divine Dragon clan. The 9 divine dragons were prostrating in the Dragon King Hall. Their huge bodies contained a vast dragon might. Quickly absorb these wind jades and use them to improve your strength. Wang Xian passed all the wind jades to them. Everyone who likes the Invincible Divine Dragon Cultivation System, please collect them. The Invincible Divine Dragon Cultivation System updates the fastest. Chapter 2867. Breakthrough. Wind God Dragon Wings. It's the Dragon King. It's the Dragon King. The 9 wind god dragons looked at the wind jades with excitement in their eyes. There were over 41st Order God Emperor Realm Wind Jades and 1 Second Order God Emperor Realm Wind Jades. The energy of these wind jades could at least give 2 wind god dragons the strength of a Second Order God Emperor Realm Wind Jades, or even more. Dragon King. After the 9 wind god dragons evolve, we can eliminate the Shaman Union and the Imperial Court. Prime Minister Turtle said with a smile on his face. But it might be a little difficult to eliminate the Emperor Lord and the Shaman Union. Wang Xian nodded slightly. With a wave of his arm, 48 holy feathers appeared in front of him. He moved, and the unparalleled saint wings appeared behind him. Wang. A wave of energy enveloped the group of holy feathers. He closed his eyes. As long as he nurtured all these holy feathers, the wind god wings of the unparalleled saint wings would be completed. Wang Xian was looking forward to the changes that would happen. In the next few days, Wang Xian nurtured the group of holy feathers in the Dragon King Hall. Nurturing one at a time was about the same as nurturing 48. According to Wang Xian's estimation, he would be done in a few days. 3 days later, the unparalleled saint wings behind Wang Xian trembled slightly. The holy feathers in front of him also trembled slightly. The 48 somewhat illusory holy feathers were now like green scales. There were miniature wind god dragons hovering above them. Every single holy feather was filled with pressure. Wang Xian stood up slowly, and the unparalleled saint wings appeared behind him. The entire unparalleled saint wings trembled violently. The holy feathers in front of him slowly flew towards the unparalleled saint wings and fused with one of the holy feathers. Chirp, chirp, chirp. When the group of holy feathers fused with one of the unparalleled saint wings, an extremely sharp roar sounded in Wang Xian's mind. A blurry shadow seemed to be hovering in his mind. The shadow had a pair of huge wings. One of the wings was green and contained a terrifying wind elemental law. The other was covered in lightning. However, the other wing looked illusory at this moment. Voila! At this moment, the unbeginning sacred wings on Wang Xian's back let out a sound. The wind attribute wing on the left side shone with a powerful green radiance. Wang Xian floated above the Dragon King Palace slowly with the wings on his back flapping slightly. Streams of wind-attributed power of laws were flowing around those wings. Buzz! At this moment, the circulating power of law flowed along the wings and the bones of the unbeginning saint wings, surging into Wang Xian's body. This is? Wang Xian felt a surge of energy entering his body, guiding the 5 elements, light, and darkness in his body. This caused his heart to tremble slightly. Boom! Suddenly, a gale seemed to surge into his body, and the sound of wind whistling could be heard. This is the power of sacred feathers. 49 sacred feathers carry terrifying energy and directly enter my body. Oh no, my body can't withstand this energy. The wind elemental laws are tearing my body apart. Wang Xian's face changed and his pupils constricted. He could feel the violent wind attribute energy entering his body and tearing it apart. Buzz! But at this moment, a surge of energy came from the unbeginning saint wings. The energy entered his body and protected him. Every wound caused by the wind elemental laws would be instantly healed by the energy from the unbeginning saint wings. The 5 elements power and the light and darkness power in his body circulated rapidly. Streams of spiritual energy rushed into his body crazily. This is? The 5 elements power and light and darkness power in my body feel threatened and want to absorb spiritual energy to strengthen themselves. And the surrounding spiritual energy is being guided by the wind elemental laws and is rushing over rapidly. Roar, roar. Wang Xian murmured and immediately turned into a 7-colored divine dragon. He sat in the Dragon King Palace and quickly absorbed the surrounding spiritual energy. The dragon energy in his body was increasing at a terrifying speed. Seeing this, Wang Xian's eyes were filled with excitement. This was an opportunity to increase his strength. Closing his dragon eyes, Wang Xian sat in the Dragon King Palace and quickly recovered. Ding! Congratulations to host for leveling up to 6th Order Immortal God King. After some time, the system's voice rang in Wang Xian's mind. His heart leaped with joy. I can handle the wind elemental laws in my body. Almost there. At this time, Wang Xian felt the energy in his body and revealed a smile. The fusion of the 49 saint feathers and the unbeginning saint wings had increased his strength by a level. Wang. With a thought, his attributes appeared in his mind. Name, Wang Xian race. Yin Yang 5 elements dragon, 1 with the dragon, rank. 6th Order Immortal God King. 7th Transformation of Divine Dragon Transformation, Origin Source, 3960/10000000000 Sacred Ability, Dominate the Marine Animals, rule any marine animals lower than your own level, devour living beings to extract Origin Source, 5 elements control cultivation technique, Divine Dragon Transformation Sacred Ability, Soul Capture, Spirit Attachment, Yin Yang 5. Elements Dragon Eyes Laws, 5 elements Grindstone, Dragon Country in the Palm, Dragon Head Descending, 10,000 miles Dragon Body, Yin Yang 2 Poles, Yin Yang 5 elements Bowl, Divine Dragon Tail Whip. Essence Law, Metal, Wood, Water, Fire, Earth, Light, Darkness, 6th Order, God Nation, Dragon Palace Own Dragon Palace, Level 7 Dragon Palace Members, 1012450 inch 6th Order Immortal God King. I can now fight against a void 2nd Order God Emperor. Wang Xian murmured to himself as he sensed the boundless energy within his body. Hong. He flew up into the sky. His majestic dragon body had 2 gigantic wings on his back. One of the wings was similar to the wind god dragon's wings, but it was filled with a sharpness and aura. The other wing had no feathers, and it was slightly weird. With a thought, Wang Xian transformed into his human form. Voila! The gigantic wings grew to 2 meters in size, and the left wing was filled with boundless wind energy, while the right wing was slightly weird. Wang Xian could feel his control over the wind. His figure moved. Hong. In the next instant, he appeared in the sky above the Dragon Island. Looking down, the entire Dragon Island looked incredibly small. This speed? Wang Xian's eyes were filled with excitement, and his wings were trembling slightly. Hong. In the next instant, he appeared at the end of the Dragon Island. How big was the Dragon Island? Even if a First Order God Emperor flew at top speed, it would take more than a dozen hours, or a few days. But now, with just a flap of his wings, he could reach the other end of the Dragon Island in a matter of seconds. This speed is definitely not something a 2nd Order God Emperor can compare to. It should be at least a 3rd Order God Emperor. Wang Xian's eyes lit up. However, my attack power did not increase because of the wind attribute. It was just the increase in speed. Even so, I should be able to kill a 2nd Order God Emperor in a second. Chapter 2868. Instant Kill Avoid 2nd Order God Emperor. This was Wang Xian's current strength. Boom, boom, boom. Wang Xian flapped his wings and used the wind attribute to fly rapidly. After experimenting for half an hour, he returned to the sky above the ocean where the Dragon Palace was. With my speed, I can kill a void 2nd Order God Emperor instantly. I can also kill 2 or 3 with my speed. However, there's a prerequisite. The opponent's defense can't be too terrifying. If it's the Imperial Dragon type, I can only kill one with my speed. If they want to kill me, they have to be at least a void fourth order god emperor. Otherwise, they won't be able to catch me without trapping me. Wang Xian mumbled to himself with a smile. Voila! He moved and entered the dragon palace. The improvement this time was huge. Only the wind attribute of the unbeginning saint wings is complete. There's still the lightning attribute. I wonder what the complete unbeginning saint wings will do. I can control the wind attribute with the unbeginning saint wings. If I can control the lightning attribute in the future, I will be able to control 9 attributes. 9 attributes represent everything. If I can fuse them together, I'm afraid it will be terrifying. Wang Xian pondered. I didn't expect to have cultivated for a month. He looked at the time and mumbled to himself. Just then, a series of roars came from the dragon cave, and the entire dragon palace was filled with wind elemental divine wind dragons. Wang Xian was taken aback. He moved and arrived at the dragon cave. When he arrived in front of the 9 divine wind dragons' caves, he saw 9 huge bodies entrenched there. 6 of the wind divine dragons raised their heads slightly with their eyes closed. They had broken through. Not far away from them were 3 other wind divine dragons. Judging from their auras, they had also made a breakthrough and were still cultivating. Can the remaining wind jade give the 3 wind divine dragons the strength of a void second order god emperor? Wang Xian looked over and his eyes shone with excitement. If that was the case, the increase in strength of the Dragon Palace would be terrifying. Greetings, Dragon King. Sensing Wang Xian's arrival, the 6 wind divine dragons shook their bodies and transformed into young men and women. They cupped their fists towards Wang Xian respectfully. Haha, good. Wang Xian looked at them and revealed a smile. He looked down and asked, can they continue to improve with the remaining resources? Dragon King, you've brought so much wind jade. It's enough for my big brother and big sister to make another breakthrough. This time, they might need about a month. A young wind divine dragon said respectfully to Wang Xian. Good, what a pleasant surprise. Wang Xian nodded with a smile. Dragon King, when can the 9 of us go out and have some fun? We haven't participated in the Battle of the Dragon Palace. We have been cultivating in seclusion for a long time. One of the female wind divine dragons asked Wang Xian with a smile. If there's a chance next time, I'll let you go out. If you don't have anything else to do, you can go out and play in the Imperial Star region. Wang Xian revealed a smile. The wind divine dragon was a purebred divine dragon in the Dragon Palace. In the past, due to some misgivings, they had to stay in the Dragon Palace. Now, there was no need to do so, especially after the other 3 wind divine dragons had advanced. Even if the resplendent starry sky knew that they were wind divine dragons, so what? At that time, who would dare to offend the Dragon Palace after they destroyed the Shaman Association and the Imperial Court? Thank you, Dragon King. That female wind divine dragon said to Wang Xian happily. Come to the Dragon King Hall. I'll get Prime Minister Turtle to prepare some delicacies for you to celebrate. Wang Xian said with a smile. In a flash, he arrived at the Dragon King Hall. He instructed Prime Minister Turtle. Soon, the 6 wind divine dragons flew over, their faces filled with excitement. To them, they had finally made it. There's a lot of information in the communication stone plate. Sitting on the dragon throne, Wang Xian looked into the mother nest and saw a lot of information on the communication stone plate. This communication stone plate was made by the Heavenly Array. Wang Xian had also given one to Invincible, Hong Fengyan, and the rest to contact him. Yeluing had also asked for one from him. On the communication stone plate were messages from Invincible and Yeluing, especially Invincible Battle Mage, who had sent dozens of messages. Boss Wang, the people in 8 Desolations are getting a little arrogant. A few Emperor Gods have publicly said that they will teach the Dragon Palace a lesson soon. Boss Wang, when are you going to deal with them? Boss Wang, when are you coming to 8 Desolations? Boss Wang, what are you doing? When there's a chance, I want to go to the Imperial Star Domain to have some fun. There are many places in the Imperial Star Domain that I haven't been to. Now that Boss Wang is taking care of me, I want to travel around the Imperial Star Domain. Boss Wang, Yeluing asked me if I want to attend her master's advancement ceremony. I heard that her master has broken through to the Emperor God realm and the sacred region will be celebrating for 7 days. Boss Wang, I followed Master to the sacred region. Ha ha ha, the sacred region is awesome. There are so many beauties. Wang Xian looked at the messages sent by Invincible. The last message was sent 2 days ago. Looking at the messages, he revealed a faint smile. He then opened the messages sent by Yelu Ying. Yelu Ying's message was about her master breaking through, and the sacred region would be holding a banquet to invite Wang Xian. Only this message was sent 5 days ago. Wang Xian was cultivating at that time and did not see it. Hong Fengyan has lifted up the God Nation so quickly? Wang Xian was slightly surprised when he read the messages. However, when he thought about the level of the sacred region, he understood. Hong Fengyan did not invite him. Clearly, she was embarrassed and asked her disciple to ask. Judging from their messages, it should be tomorrow. Seems like I can't make it in time. However, if they are holding a banquet for 7 days, even if I can't make it to the first day, I can still make it to the second day. Wang Xian mumbled to himself and prepared to make a trip to the sacred region. In addition, he wanted to ask Hong Fengyan for a planet to build a dragon palace. This way, he could teleport from the Imperial Star region to the sacred region directly. It would be more convenient for him to travel around the world in the future. Moreover, he told Hong Fengyan that he would go congratulate her when she broke through to the Emperor God realm. I'll bring you guys to the sacred region in a while. Wang Xian hesitated for a moment before replying to Invincible and Yelu Ying. After which, he spoke to the 6 wind divine dragons. Sacred region? Sure. 2 of the female wind divine dragons' eyes lit up as they nodded happily. After the banquet to celebrate the breakthrough of the 6 wind divine dragons, Wang Xian led them and flew out. The error-free chapters of the Invincible Divine Dragon Cultivation System will continue to be updated on Green Bean. There will be no advertisements on the website. Please collect and recommend Green Bean. Please collect those who like the Invincible Divine Dragon Cultivation System. 1. Invincible Divine Dragon Cultivation System Green Beans updates are the fastest. Chapter 2869. Roar Roar. Dragon King, we're here to bring you. Outside a planet at the edge of the Imperial Star Domain, 6 wind divine dragons roared and transformed into their divine dragon forms. They lined up neatly in a row, exuding a powerful aura. Behind them, the tails of the 6 wind divine dragons shook slightly. A divine dragon throne formed by the wind attribute appeared behind them. Gradually, the wind attribute formed a luxurious dragon sedan. There was a wind divine dragon circling above the sedan, looking extremely lifelike. 6 dragons pulling the sedan. All right. Wang Xian looked at the 20,000-meter-long wind divine dragon. 6 divine dragons lined up in a row, looking extremely imposing. Wang Xian smiled. Although they were much slower than him, it was still very comfortable to sit in the dragon sedan. Whoosh! He moved and sat in the dragon sedan. The 6 wind divine dragons roared and flew towards the vast starry sky. Their powerful aura dispersed into the surroundings. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The 6 wind divine dragons swayed their bodies and sped through the sky. Wang Xian smiled as he felt the speed of the wind divine dragons. Among the First Order God Emperors, the speed of the wind divine dragons was top-notch. He sat in the dragon sedan and scanned the surroundings. Wouldn't it be more cool if he had a crown? Wang Xian raised an eyebrow and revealed a smile. He waved his hand, and the 5 elements grindstone appeared in his hand. The grindstone transformed slightly and turned into a 5-colored crown. On it, there were 5 lifelike divine dragons circling around. The 5 elements grindstone was slightly weaker now. It was not very useful against First Order God Emperors. However, the 5 elements grindstone was still the most suitable for various weapons. The main reason was that Wang Xian's speed of improvement was too fast, and the 5 elements grindstone could not keep up. I can also use it to nourish my body in the future, Wang Xian muttered to himself as he put on the 5 elements grindstone and sat there quietly. Dragon King, there's a planet with life ahead. The Wind Divine Dragon's voice sounded after 10 days. Wang Xian opened his eyes and looked ahead. There was a planet with life a few billion kilometers away. Wang Xian had been to this planet before. Go to the sky above that planet. Wang Xian said. It's Dragon King. The 6 wind divine dragons moved and flew toward the planet. Roar! A few seconds later, the 6 wind divine dragons let out a low roar and arrived above the planet. What? What is this? Hiss! Look at the sky. Look! What kind of terrifying existence is that? Look behind us. There's a gorgeous palanquin. On the planet, when the wind divine dragon quietly descended into the sky, some people noticed its existence and were shocked. Let's go. Wang Xian walked out of the carriage and spoke to the 6 wind divine dragons. The 6 wind divine dragons transformed into their human forms and followed beside Wang Xian. Buzz! With a move of his body, he directly appeared at the teleportation array and disappeared. Disappeared? How did it disappear in an instant? Is that an illusion or something else? What were those 6 enormous creatures? It looks like the legendary divine dragon. Don't divine dragons have wings? Who said there aren't? Some divine dragons have wings. When Wang Xian and the rest appeared in front of the teleportation device, they could hear voices coming from the surroundings. He smiled faintly and stepped into the teleportation device. The 6 wind divine dragons followed closely behind Wang Xian. Hee. Congratulations to Emperor God Hongfeng for stepping into the Emperor realm. We are here on behalf of the Sorcerer Association, the Imperial Court, and the 8 Desolations to present our congratulatory gifts. Just as Wang Xian was rushing over, countless people had gathered at the center of the sacred region, a place known as the Sacred Nation. In front of them was the sacred stairs of the sacred region. On the stairs, there were a few majestic thrones. The sacred region was one of the 7 major regions. This was the name of a stellar region and also the pinnacle force in the resplendent starry sky. The entire sacred region was under the control of the sacred region. Everyone in this stellar region was a disciple of the sacred region. The sacred region was relatively peaceful, and there weren't many wars. Hence, there wasn't much pressure. Hence, the strength of the sacred region wasn't very strong. There were only 5 emperor gods. With the birth of Hongfeng, she was the 6th. As a unified stellar region with trillions of people, the birth of an emperor god was an unusually sensational event to the entire sacred region. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that the birth of an emperor god was akin to the birth of an emperor. At this moment, there were 2 old men standing in front of the thrones. They were smiling at Hongfeng, who was sitting on the thrones. Hongfeng was also known as Emperor God Hongfeng. You're too kind. Hongfeng looked at the 2 of them, frowned and replied plainly, how did the emperor gods of the 8 Desolations get together with the emperor gods of the imperial court so quickly? Oh no, what are these 2 guys doing here? On the left side was a group of people, including Invincible Jean Fa and his master, Emperor Feng. Invincible Jean Fa looked at the 2 emperor gods in the middle and frowned as he spoke softly. Emperor Shangshui also knitted his eyebrows tightly. You're welcome. We naturally have to congratulate the birth of an emperor god in the sacred region. Emperor God Shun Wu smiled faintly and continued, however, we are here for another matter. May I know what brings the 2 of you to our sanctuary? On the right side of Red Wind God Emperor, there was an extremely pale old man. He was holding a 2-meter-long white scepter as he looked at Emperor God Shenwu and Red Wind God. His face was filled with curiosity. Holy Lord, there are some things that have happened in our 8 Desolation and 6 Directions that the Holy Lord and the rest of the sanctuary might not be aware of. The Dragon King of Dragon Palace and an expert killed an Emperor God from 8 Desolation arrogantly. Moreover, Emperor God Redwind has a good relationship with the Dragon King of Dragon Palace. Hence, we came to congratulate Emperor God Redwind for his breakthrough. Secondly, we wanted to see the relationship between Sanctuary and Dragon Palace. The 8 Desolation Emperor God said to Saint Master with a smile. When the Holy Lord heard his words, he slowly sat up straight and looked at Hongfeng beside him. The other 4 Sacred Region God Emperors also looked at Hongfeng in shock. They didn't know what had happened in the 8 Desolation 6 Directions. Firstly, the distance between the 2 sides was too far. Secondly, the time it had happened was too short. My business with the Dragon Palace's Dragon King has nothing to do with the sanctuary. Hongfeng looked at the 8 Desolation Emperor God and Emperor God Shenwu as she spoke faintly. That's great. We don't wish to have any conflict with the sanctuary. Emperor God Shenwu said with a smile. Don't worry. We have nothing to do with the Dragon Palace's Dragon King. Saint Master frowned slightly as he spoke to them. Hehe, Saint Master, it's mainly because Emperor God Redwind has a deep relationship with the Dragon Palace's Dragon King. Hence, we have no choice but to come over and ask about it. The error-free chapter of Invincible Divine Dragon Cultivation System will continue to be updated on Green Bean. There will be no advertisements on the website. Everyone who likes Invincible Divine Dragon Cultivation System, please bookmark it. Invincible Divine Dragon Cultivation System, Green Bean's updates are the fastest. Chapter 2870, Imperial Court Sorcerer Association and 8 Desolatia were also afraid of getting into a conflict with Sacred Region in the future. 8 Desolation Emperor Gods said to Sacred Master and the rest. Their words caused the expressions of the Sacred Master and the other few Emperor Gods to turn ugly. They looked coldly at Emperor God Shenwu and 8 Desolation Emperor Gods. If it weren't for the fact that they represented 3 forces that weren't weaker than them and were even much stronger than them, they would have already been enraged. The matter between me and Dragon King has nothing to do with Sacred Region. Hong Fengyan stared at the two of them and said emotionlessly, Huh, little Yin, let's not get involved in their matter. The sacred leader said to Hong Fengyan after hearing her words, Sacred Master, it's all thanks to Dragon King that I could break through this time. Hong Fengyan said to Sacred Master, in that case, Emperor God Redwind is going to get involved in our matter with Dragon Palace? Emperor God Shun Wu squinted his eyes and asked Hong Fengyan, what's going on? Why are Imperial Court Emperor God and 8 Desolation Emperor here all of a sudden? And why is Emperor God Redwind involved? What are they here for? To warn us Sacred Region? What happened to Emperor God Redwind and 8 Desolation? Today is Emperor God Redwind's Emperor becoming Emperor ceremony. Are Imperial Court and 8 Desolation Emperor here to create trouble? Preposterous. Today was Emperor God Redwind's Emperor becoming Emperor ceremony. Billions of people had gathered around. All the experts in Sacred Region had come to pay their respects. However, the scene in front of them made everyone in Sacred Region change their expressions. It was supposed to be a joyous day. Now, the atmosphere was heavy. Some of them discussed softly and their faces didn't look too good. If Dragon Palace needs me, I will naturally get involved. Hong Fengyan stared at them and said faintly. Just as she finished her sentence, everyone's expression changed. Even Sacred Master's face darkened. Haha, Emperor God Redwind, you have to consider this carefully. Now that Dragon Palace is the enemy of our 3 forces, you have just become an Emperor God. Today is also the day of your Emperor becoming Emperor ceremony. If you stand with Dragon Palace, even if you become an Emperor God, you won't have much time left. It's not good to have happy events and to lose them. Isn't it good to be a God Emperor in the sanctuary? Emperor God Shen Wu's face turned cold when he heard her words. He did not bother to hide the threat in his words. You two, please watch your words. When the sacred leader heard what they said, he looked displeased. He raised the scepter in his hand and knocked it lightly. Holy Lord, we didn't mean to offend you. I'm sure the Holy Lord understands our situation with the Dragon Palace. Anyone who gets involved is our enemy. We, the Imperial Court Sorcerer Association and 8 Desolations, do not wish to become enemies with the Sanctuary. That's why we've come here today to present our congratulatory gifts. The 8 Desolation God Emperor cupped his fists at the Sacred Master and said sincerely, I can make it clear here that the Sanctuary will not get involved in the matter between the Dragon Palace and the 3 forces. Then, he looked at Hong Fengyan at the side. I will also try my best not to let the people from the Sanctuary get involved. With your words, Saint Lord, we can rest assured. Our 3 factions also wish to become friends with the Sanctuary. Emperor God Shenwu and the 8 Desolations God Emperor cupped their fists and smiled. Hee, the 2 of you are guests. Have fun here for a few days. The sacred leader said politely. Haha, great. In that case, we will stay here for 2 days before leaving. We should also report to the Emperor Lord Sorcerer, Lord Baron. The 2 of them laughed. Holy Lord, All right. Hong Fengyan wanted to say something but was interrupted by the sacred leader. Let the ceremony continue. The sacred leader said plainly. Emperor God Shenwu and the 8 Desolations God Emperor looked at each other and sat by the side. Emperor God Shangshui, I don't think you will get involved in the matter between the Dragon Palace and us. The two of them walked to the side, looked at Emperor God Shangshui and asked with a smile, I, Shangshui, have not joined any forces. Naturally, I will not get involved in the matters of any forces. Emperor God Shangshui replied plainly. That's great. But please take care of your disciple, Emperor God Shangshui. The 8 Desolation God Emperor nodded and glanced at Jean Fa Wudi. When Invincible heard this, he immediately lowered his head and mouthed, MGB. However, he didn't dare to speak at this moment. They even dared to warn Emperor God Redwind, let alone him. Emperor God Redwind had a great force like the sacred region, and he only had one master. Don't worry. I will teach my stubborn disciple well. Emperor God Shangshui nodded. He didn't dare to be calculative with the two of them who represented the 3 forces. This seems to be our Emperor God Redwind, getting to know the Dragon King and the 8 Desolations. However, the Dragon King offended the 8 Desolations and even killed an Emperor God of the 8 Desolations. How did the Dragon Palace offend the 8 Desolations? The Emperor God of the 8 Desolations is very powerful. They have more than a dozen Emperor Gods. Most importantly, they are enemies with the Imperial Court Sorcerer Association. Now, they have offended another great force. Are they courting death? They even dragged our Emperor God Redwind into this. The Emperor Gods of the Imperial Court and 8 Desolations are here to warn us. The 3 forces in bedazzling star sky. It seems like the 3 forces have joined forces to deal with the Dragon Palace. The Dragon Palace is doomed. D***M in it. What a joyous occasion. Imperial Court Sorcerer Association and 8 Desolations have disrupted it. The disciples of the sacred region, who came to attend the celebration, were discussing softly. The celebration continued. 5 hours later, the group of Emperor Gods left and the disciples of the sacred region rejoiced. However, because of the arrival of the Imperial Court and 8 Desolations God Emperor, the atmosphere of the celebration was much lower. Little Yin, don't get involved in the matter between the Dragon Palace and the Imperial Court Sorcerer Association and 8 Desolations. Now that the 3 forces have joined forces, the Dragon Palace is likely to be destroyed. In a hall at the back, the 5 Emperor Gods of the sacred region and Hong Fengyan were seated. The Sacred Lord looked at Hong Fengyan and reminded her. Sacred Lord, the reason why I could reach the Emperor God realm is because of the guidance of the Dragon King. Hong Fengyan lowered her head slightly and said, Do I have to pay with my life? How can the Dragon Palace resist the alliance of the 3 forces? In the end, even if the Dragon King of the Dragon Palace doesn't die, it will bode ill for you if you get involved. The Sacred Lord stared at her and reprimanded her sternly. Hong Fengyan lowered her head and clenched her fists. You can't get involved in this matter. It wasn't easy for the sacred region to give birth to an Emperor God like you. I don't want anything to happen to you. The sacred region will not get involved in any disputes. You have to consider everything carefully. The Sacred Lord reminded Hong Fengyan before disappearing. Chapter 2871. Little Yin. Although the Dragon King guided you and helped you break through, it's best that you don't get involved in such matters. Even the sanctuary wouldn't dare to get involved, let alone you. If we're not careful, not even our bones will be left. 8 Desolations. Which member of the Witch Alliance is easy to bully? Even the Imperial Court isn't much weaker than us. In the hall, an Emperor God from the sanctuary continued to speak to Hong Fengyan. I know. Hong Fengyan nodded her head slightly. It's good that you know. The other 4 looked at each other, shook their heads, and walked out. Hong Fengyan stood there quietly for tens of seconds before she flew back to her palace. Yeluing, don't you think the Emperor Gods from the 8 Desolations are too arrogant? How dare they threaten us? Boss Wang should kill them all. Now that the Witch Alliance and the 8 Desolations have teamed up, will the Dragon King of Dragon Palace still be a match for them? I know Boss Wang very well. It won't be long before we kill them all. Humph. But they are an alliance of 3 forces. When she arrived at the main hall, she heard the conversation between Invincible Warlaw and his disciple. Master, Master. Yelu Ying and the rest greeted Hong Fengyan respectfully when they saw her. Emperor God Hong Feng, Emperor God of Shangshui, and Invincible greeted her immediately. Both of you have come from afar. After the ceremony, let my disciples show you around. Hong Fengyan smiled and said, Hee, thank you, Emperor God Hong Feng. Invincible chuckled and replied, Has the Dragon King replied to your message? Hong Fengyan asked them after hesitating for a few seconds. Not yet. What is Boss Wang doing now? Invincible shook his head with a straight face. Buzz buzz. However, something on his chest suddenly vibrated. Her? Invincible was stunned as he took out the communication stone plate on his chest immediately. It's a message from Boss Wang. He's heading towards us and has entered the Sanctuary Star Zone. Invincible exclaimed in surprise when he saw the message on the communication stone plate. He said that he was cultivating a while ago and didn't see our message. He also said that he couldn't make it on the first day of the ceremony, but he could make it on the second day. He continued, Oh, is the Dragon King coming soon? Yelu Ying and the others asked in surprise. I'm on the way. It'll probably take another 7 or 8 hours. Invincible said with a grin, and Hong Fengyan's eyes flickered and she nodded her head slightly. She looked at her disciples at the side and said, Go to the Sacred Tower and book the entire top floor. Tomorrow, go to the Water Divine Emperor with the Dragon King and enjoy the delicacies of the holy region. Yes, Master. The disciples immediately said happily. We have to inform the Dragon King about the alliance between the Imperial Court Witchcraft Association and the 8 Desolates, so that the Dragon Palace can prepare in advance. The Upper Water God Emperor said slowly. Hong Fengyan also nodded her head slightly. The addition of Ba Huang to the 2 superpowers could be a nightmare for the Dragon Palace. Dragon King, this sacred region is so peaceful. Moreover, there is news of God Emperor Crimson Wind breaking through everywhere. At this very moment, on a planet in the sacred region, Wang Xian was leading 6 Wind Divine Dragons on a teleportation journey from one planet to another in the Imperial Star region. The group of Wind Divine Dragons, who were on a long journey for the first time, looked around curiously. They had been cultivating and had no understanding of the various star regions in the resplendent starry sky. The sacred region is very peaceful. It has been close to 10 years since it was unified. However, it is also because it is peaceful and the competition isn't intense. Therefore, there aren't many emperor gods in the sacred region. However, the sacred region has a strong foundation. They are much stronger than the imperial court at their peak. Wang Xian explained to them. The group of Wind Divine Dragons nodded their heads slightly. Wang Xian looked around and saw news of God Emperor Crimson Wind breaking through everywhere. The birth of an emperor god in the sacred region was a joyous event for the entire Imperial Star region. We will reach the Saint Nation in the center of the sacred region in 7 hours. Wang Xian looked at the map and said, the sacred region was huge. If they were to fly over, they would need half a month. Wang Xian made his way through the teleportation. After 7 hours, they arrived at their destination, the Saint Nation. The Saint Nation was a sacred land floating in the universe. It could be called the Sky Nation. The entire enormous holy empire was the Void Divine Empire of a fallen god emperor. The entire Void God Nation was huge and not smaller than the Dragon Island. According to the rumors in the sacred region, the owner of the Void God Nation was a terrifying existence from billions of years ago. He had the strength of a peak emperor god. After billions of years, most parts of the Void God Nation had decayed. However, even if it had decayed, it was still a blessed land. God Emperor Crimson Wind has advanced to an emperor god. It's a blessing for the sacred region. With one more emperor god, our strength has increased tremendously. The grand ceremony this time was spectacular. Moreover, it was my first time seeing our sacred master. It's a pity that the Imperial Court Emperor and 8 Desolation Emperor are a little disappointing. They actually warned the sacred region and God Emperor Crimson Wind publicly. The Dragon Palace is a little too arrogant. They are already enemies with the Imperial Court Sorcerer Association. Both sides are evenly matched. Now, they have offended the Eight Desolation. Now that they have joined forces, the Dragon Palace is doomed. I guess the Imperial Court Sorcerer Association and the Eight Desolation are also afraid that we will join forces with the Dragon Palace. Hence, they are here to test the waters. Our Sacred Master is naturally not willing to participate. However, God Emperor Crimson Wind is a little uncertain. The reason why God Emperor Crimson Wind could become an Emperor God is all because of the Dragon King. If the Dragon Palace is courting death, don't drag us down. God Emperor Crimson Wind, please don't drag us down. This grand ceremony is all their fault. It's a little disappointing. When Wang Xian arrived at the Saint Nation through the teleportation array, he heard the discussions around him. When Wang Xian heard their discussions, he raised his eyebrows slightly and his eyes glowed. Who would have expected the Imperial Court Sorcerer Association to join forces with the Eight Desolation? Moreover, they joined forces so quickly. He murmured in surprise. It would take at least 4 to 5 months to reach the Eight Desolation from the Heavenly Witch Domain. However, they had joined forces in just over a month. There was only one possibility. The experts from the Imperial Court Sorcerer Association just happened to be in the Eight Desolation. This is really unexpected. Wang Xian scanned the surroundings. The reason why he dared to offend the Eight Desolation was because the Eight Desolation was very far away from the Heavenly Witch Domain. The chances of them joining forces were not high. However, he did not expect them to join forces so quickly. The Eight Desolation was also so daring to join the battle. Maybe they thought the three forces could annihilate the Dragon Palace completely. Wang Xian laughed in disdain. The error-free chapters of the Invincible Divine Dragon Cultivation System will continue to be updated on the mobile game bar. There will be no advertisements on the website. Please collect and recommend the mobile game bar. Those who like the Invincible Divine Dragon Cultivation System, please collect. Invincible Divine Dragon Cultivation System mobile game bar updates the fastest. Chapter 2872. Instantly insta-killing 2 God Emperors. Zhong based on the strength of the Dragon Palace during the battle between the Imperial Court and the Dragon Palace during the Sorcerer meeting, the Dragon Palace would suffer a fatal blow if the 8 Desolates joined in. But now, inside the Dragon Palace, there were 3 other Wind Divine Dragons in the midst of improving their strength. In half a month's time, they would possess the strength of a second-order God Emperor Realm expert. At that time, including himself and Xiaolan, the Dragon Palace would have 5 second-order God Emperor Realm experts. After this Hongfeng Yin celebration, the 3 Wind Divine Dragons will head directly to the Heavenly Witchcraft Domain and destroy the Imperial Court and the Witchcraft Association. Wang Xian said coldly, "Dragon King, they are being disrespectful to our Dragon Palace." A Wind Divine Dragon beside him whispered to Wang Xian, "It's fine. Let's go to the center." As Wang Xian spoke, he moved and flew towards the center of the Holy Nation. At the same time, he took out the communication stone plate and sent a message to Invincible and Yeluing. "Master, the Dragon King sent me a message. He has already entered our Holy Kingdom." At the center of the Holy Empire, on the bustling street in front of the Holy Empire's central palace, a towering tower rose into the sky. This was the Holy Empire's mother-child sacred tower. The Holy Tower was the symbol of the Holy Empire, and they were currently in the Holy Tower. The Holy Mother Tower was located in the central palace of the Holy Empire. The Mother-Child Holy Tower were the 2 tallest structures in the Holy Empire. The Sun Holy Tower was slightly lower than the Mother Holy Tower. Now, the Sanctum Sanctum was open to the public. Standing on top of the Sanctum Sanctum, one could overlook the entire Holy Empire. However, although it was open to the public, ordinary people still did not have the ability to enter. Even if you had money, you might not be able to enter. At the top of the sacred tower, Hongfeng Yin was playing chess with the Upper Water God Emperor. Yeluing and the rest were playing with Battle Fa Wudi at the side. Upon receiving Wang Xian's message, Yeluing immediately reported to her master. "Boss Wang also sent me a message. I've sent our location to Boss Wang. He should be here soon. I'll go down and welcome him." Invincible also walked over and said, "Let's go too." Hong Fengyan hesitated for a moment before speaking. All right, let's go down and wait. The High Water God Emperor also nodded. Since the Dragon Palace's Dragon King had arrived, they naturally had to welcome him. But isn't it a bit? Also, the two from Imperial Court and 8 Desolation haven't left yet. The Upper Water Divine Emperor looked at Hong Fengyan and said hesitantly, "It's fine. They came here to warn me not to join their war. If I didn't directly announce it, would they dare to force me?" Hong Fengyan said indifferently, "Haha, that's true. I'm also alone. If they force us, they'll be the fools." The Upper Water God Emperor laughed, stood up, and walked outside. Hong Fengyan also stood up and walked out. The invincible Yellow Ying and the others immediately followed behind. "Greetings, Sir God Emperor Scarlet Wind." "Greetings, Sir God Emperor Scarlet Wind." When Hong Fengyan arrived at the entrance of the sacred tower, all the surrounding sanctuary experts and disciples were slightly shocked and hurriedly bowed respectfully. Some of the weaker ones even knelt on the ground. "It's nothing. There's no need to be so polite." Hong Fengyan's gaze swept across the crowd. She waved her hand and stood near the entrance of the sacred pagoda. As the symbolic building of the holy nation, there were many people gathered around the sacred pagoda. Some sanctuary experts would occasionally bring people in and out of the sacred pagoda. Now that their Emperor Scarlet Wind was standing beside the sacred pagoda, everyone was shocked. "Greetings, Sir God Emperor Scarlet Wind." The surrounding people, even those who were more than 10 kilometers away, bowed respectfully as long as they saw Hong Fengyan. She was one of the 6 strongest people in the sanctuary who held great power in their hands. "Do what you have to do." Hong Fengyan waved her arm and a breeze lifted everyone up. Actually, it's not bad to be an Emperor God of a force." The Upper Water Divine Emperor scanned the surroundings. When he saw this scene, he smiled at Hong Fengyan. "If the Upper Water God Emperor is interested, you can join our sanctuary. If you join us, we'll also host a lively banquet." Hong Fengyan joked. "Ha ha ha, no way. I prefer freedom." The Upper Water God Emperor laughed. Cough cough. "Master, you can return to Glaze Star region. I also want to be an awesome second generation." At the side, Invincible said softly, "Bam." However, in the next moment, his body was pressed into the ground by the Upper Water God Emperor. Only his head was left outside. "Humph." The Upper Water God Emperor stared at Invincible. Apparently, Invincible had said something he didn't want to hear and had touched on a sore spot. Upon seeing this, Yellow Ying and the rest couldn't help but laugh. "What's going on? Why is our Emperor God Emperor Scarlet Wind standing at the entrance of the sacred pagoda? He looks like he's waiting for someone." "I don't know." The old man beside him is also an Emperor God. He's the Upper Water God Emperor Scarlet Wind. He's an Emperor God that our Emperor God Emperor Scarlet Wind befriended. They should be waiting for someone. For our Emperor God Emperor Scarlet Wind and another Emperor God to wait at the entrance, it must be another Emperor God. Is it our Sacred Master? I don't think it's our Sacred Master. If it's him, he would have gone to the Mother's Sacred Pagoda instead of coming here. Who could it be then? Around them, the crowd discussed softly after bowing to Hong Fengyan. From time to time, they would look over in that direction with curiosity in their eyes. "We're here." I can already feel their aura. Not far away from the sacred pagoda, Wang Xian led the 6 wind divine dragons over with a smile. Looking at the sacred pagoda ahead, he quickened his pace. Soon, a few familiar figures appeared in his sight. "Dragon King, over here." When Wang Xian approached, Hong Fengyan, Upper Water God Emperor, and the rest also noticed him. Yellow Ying looked at Wang Xian's back, waved her hands excitedly, and shouted loudly. Regardless of the dispute between the Dragon Palace and the Imperial Court, the Dragon King of Dragon Palace was the only powerful Emperor God that she knew and had spoken to so many times. Especially when this Emperor God was the leader of a powerful force. Yellow Ying felt very close to Wang Xian and was proud of him. "Look, Yellow Ying, know the Dragon King of Dragon Palace." "Huh, Dragon King? Dragon King of Dragon Palace?" Around the sanctum, some of the people who were paying attention to the situation heard Yellow Ying's words, and their bodies trembled. Their eyes widened in shock. Dragon King. In this resplendent starry sky, only the Dragon King of Dragon Palace could be called Dragon King. Could it be? At this moment, everyone's gazes turned to the front. A young man with a crown on his head walked toward them. Chapter 2873. That's the Dragon King of Dragon Palace. He looks so young. Look at that Dragon King. If you don't look closely, he doesn't seem to exist. But if you look closely, he's so eye-catching. I have to say that the Dragon King is really handsome. He has a powerful aura. The Dragon King of Dragon Palace actually came to our sanctuary. It seems like he's on good terms with Emperor God Red Wind. The Emperor Gods of Imperial Court and 8 Wilderness are still here. This Dragon King might not know that 8 Wilderness and Imperial Court are working together. If the Imperial Court, the Witches Association, and the 3 major forces of the 8 Desolates form an alliance to attack the Dragon Palace, the Dragon Palace will probably be hard-pressed to resist. It's not a good thing for our sanctuary that the Dragon King of Dragon Palace is here. The experts and disciples of the sanctuary around the sacred tower were shocked, curious, and surprised to see Wang Xian and the rest. The Dragon King of Dragon Palace had come personally. He was the leader of the top 3 forces in bedazzling starry sky. However, in their opinion, the current situation of the Dragon Palace was rather perilous. If the 3 forces really joined forces to attack the Dragon Palace would probably encounter a great calamity. I'm late cultivating in Dragon Palace. Congratulations on advancing to Emperor God. Wang Xian could hear the discussions around him clearly, but he wasn't bothered. He came to Hong Fengyan and spoke with a smile. The Dragon King of Dragon Palace is giving me face by coming here. Hong Fengyan chuckled and gestured to Wang Xian. Wang Xian chuckled and followed them to the top of the sacred tower. Everyone was watching as the Dragon King of Dragon Palace followed Emperor God Red Wind into the sacred tower. This is big news. The Emperor Gods of Imperial Court and 8 Wilderness just reminded Emperor God Red Wind during the ceremony. Now, Emperor God Red Wind is receiving the Dragon King. The Dragon King of Dragon Palace is here. This will shake the entire sanctuary. Everyone watched as they entered the sacred tower, their eyes filled with astonishment. Boss Wang, you're finally here. We thought you wouldn't come. Invincible Battle Law grinned and said on the top floor of the sacred tower, I forgot about time during cultivation. I didn't expect you to break through so quickly. Wang Xian smiled. This is all thanks to your wind jade. Hong Fengyan said with a smile. She waved her hand and got her disciple to prepare some food. By the way, does the Dragon King know about the alliance between the Ba Huang and the Imperial Court? The current situation is very bad for the Dragon Palace. The Upper Water God Emperor reminded Wang Xian as the group sat down. I'll learn a little on the way. Wang Xian nodded his head slightly and looked at Hong Fengyan. Did the Imperial Court and 8 Wilderness Emperor Gods threaten you during the ceremony yesterday? It's not exactly a threat. It's just a warning to us, the sanctuary, not to get involved in your matters. Hee, the sanctuary is the sanctuary, and I am me. There are some things that I want to decide. Our sacred master will not stop me. Hong Fengyan said with a smile. You don't need to get involved in this matter. Wang Xian shook his head and smiled. Boss Wang, can the Dragon Palace withstand the alliance of the 3 forces? Invincible came over and asked with concern. Although it is surprising that the 8 Desolation, the Witchcraft Union, and the Imperial Court have joined forces so quickly, the Dragon Palace will still be able to handle it. Wang Xian replied with a smile. It's good that they can handle it. You have no idea how arrogant those 2 guys were yesterday. Invincible said from the side. Is that so? Wang Xian squinted his eyes. That's a small matter. They are just putting on an act. They don't dare to be arrogant in the sanctuary. They are also afraid of forcing us to the Dragon Palace. Hong Fengyan shook her head indifferently. Master, the dishes are here. Dragon King, this is the most famous delicacy in the sanctuary. At this time, Yaluing walked over and said with a smile, Haha, the best dish in the sanctuary. I'm going to have a good taste. The Upper Water God Emperor chuckled. While Wang Xian and the group were chatting and eating, The entire sanctuary was in an uproar because of his arrival. The communication device in the sanctuary was also using the artificial intelligence system. Now, the entire artificial intelligence system was filled with news about the Dragon King of the Dragon Palace arriving in the sanctuary. Everyone in the sanctuary was shocked by the arrival of the Dragon King of the Dragon Palace. What is the Dragon King of the Dragon Palace doing here? Is he trying to get us to stand on the same side as the Dragon Palace? That's possible. Otherwise, the Dragon King of the Dragon Palace would have arrived yesterday. They might have found out about the alliance between the 8 barons and the Witch Association of the Imperial Court. Hence, they want to ally with the sanctuary. Yesterday, during the Emperor Red Wind's Emperor Ascension ceremony, the 2 Emperor gods from the 8 barons of the Imperial Court were a little disappointed. They even threatened us. However, our Sacred Lord has also said that we won't participate in the war between them. The Dragon Palace is courting death. Don't drag us into it. The sanctuary has always been peaceful. On the artificial intelligence system, everyone in the sanctuary was discussing the arrival of the Dragon King of the Dragon Palace. Sacred Lord, Lord Red Wind, and the Dragon King of the Dragon Palace are in the Sacred Tower. Now that Lord Red Wind and the Dragon King are so close, could it be at the same time? On the Mother Saint Pagoda located in the central palace of the sanctuary, a few sanctuary guardians stood respectfully before the Sacred Lord and reported the news. Ignore it. If the Dragon King wants to visit me, just say that I'm not here. The Sacred Lord held the scepter, leaned on the chair, and said with flickering eyes, "Yes." The few guardians nodded as they understood the situation. The Sacred Lord wasn't meeting the Dragon King because he was sending a signal to the 2 Emperor gods from the 8 barons. However, if Emperor Red Wind insisted on helping the Dragon Palace, they couldn't do anything about it. Emperor God Shenwu, I've received news that the Dragon King of the Dragon Palace is here. In a luxurious sky garden not far away from the central palace of the sanctuary, an Emperor God from the 8 barons was holding onto an artificial intelligence system as he spoke to Emperor God Shenwu, who was drinking wine in the study room. Huh. Emperor God Shenwu's eyes narrowed as he stood up slowly. Emperor Red Wind has received the Dragon King personally. He is at the Sacred Tower now. Obviously, Emperor Red Wind didn't take our words to heart. The Emperor God from the 8 barons said coldly, "What about the Sacred Lord of the Sanctuary? What's their reaction?" Emperor God Shenwu asked coldly with a tinge of murderous intent. There's no reaction from the Sacred Lord. The Emperor God from the 8 barons shook his head. If that's the case, let's go over and ask Emperor Red Wind what his intentions are. Is he courting death after breaking through to the Emperor God realm? Emperor God Shenwu said coldly, "All right. If he really wants to be our enemy, don't blame us for making things difficult for him. Don't blame us for being impolite." The Emperor God from the 8 barons nodded in agreement. The 2 of them moved and flew towards the Sacred Tower. The error-free chapters of the Invincible Divine Dragon Cultivation System will continue to be updated on the mobile game bar. There will be no advertisements on the website. Please collect and recommend the mobile game bar. Those who like the Invincible Divine Dragon Cultivation System, please collect. Invincible Divine Dragon Cultivation System mobile game bar updates the fastest. Chapter 2874. During the Emperor Ascension ceremony of God Emperor Crimson Wind, all the experts in the Holy Region came to pay their respects. This caused the entire Holy Empire to be extremely lively. The gigantic Holy Empire was currently slightly crowded. As the symbolic building of the Holy Empire, countless people gathered at the sanctum. Within the Holy Empire, there was a rule that prohibited anyone below the Undying God King stage from flying. Only saint-level elders and above were allowed to fly here. Normally, elders and protectors wouldn't fly in the Holy Kingdom unless there was an emergency. It's in the sanctum up ahead. At this moment, Imperial Court and 8 Desolation God Emperors were floating in the air above the Sacred Tower. They stared at the top of the Sacred Tower with cold eyes. Question Emperor God Red Wind again. If Sacred Master and the others don't come out, everything will be fine. But if they do come out, we must immediately inform the sorcerers, Monarch Lord, Emperor God Desolation, and the others to make preparations. This time, no matter what the result is, we will leave immediately. God Emperor Shunwu said to the 8 Desolation God Emperor. The Octotera God Emperor nodded and frowned. If the sanctuary really participated in this war and stood on the side of the Dragon Palace, then the 8 Wilderness would have to reconsider. Emperor God Hongfeng. The two of them hovered at the top of the sacred tower and shouted in the direction of the room at the top. At the highest point of the sacred tower, Hong Fengyan, who was chatting with Wang Xian and the rest, was taken aback. She looked outside through the window. When she saw the two figures outside, she narrowed her eyes slightly. Why are they here? The upper water god emperor was taken aback and frowned as he looked over. Imperial Court God Emperor. 8 Desolation God Emperor? Wang Xian looked at the two figures and his eyes flickered. What are these two guys doing here? What a disappointment. I can tell that these two are up to no good. The faces of Yelu Ying and the others who were invincible also changed slightly as they looked outside. Hong Fengyan stood up and walked to the window, staring coldly at the two figures outside. I wonder what is the matter between Emperor God Shenwu and Emperor God Sanyan. Hong Fengyan stared at the two of them expressionlessly and asked plainly, What's going on? A voice came from the top of the sacred tower. The sudden appearance of two figures attracted the attention of many people in the surroundings. The two god emperors from Imperial Dynasty and 8 Desolation. What are they doing? What are they trying to do by coming to find Sir God Emperor Redwind? Not good. They must have seen the Dragon King. That's why they came to find trouble with our Lord Emperor God Redwind. Around them, some people lifted their heads and looked at the sky above the sanctum. Some of the experts in the sacred tower opened their windows and frowned as well. Holy Master, the god emperors of 8 Desolation and Imperial Court have gone to find Xiao Yan. At this moment, on the Mother Holy Pagoda, which was far away from the Sun Holy Pagoda, the 5 emperor gods of the sanctuary were sitting on the top floor of the Holy Pagoda. An old man frowned and looked in the direction of the Sun Holy Pagoda. With his strength, he could see everything over there. Xiao Yan is a little stubborn. In addition, it was all thanks to the Dragon King that she could make a breakthrough to Emperor God. She should make her own choice. If the Dragon Palace could get through this, it would be beneficial for Xiao Yan. The Holy Lord shook his head helplessly. Holy Lord, if the Octotera Imperial Court and the Witchcraft Association really join forces to attack the Dragon Palace, how will the Dragon Palace defend against them? If they can withstand it, it will be too heaven-defying. I guess the Dragon Palace will be finished. Xiao Yan is deeply involved with the Dragon Palace. What if? An emperor god of the sanctuary shook his head and said with a frown, It's not our place to stop Xiao Yan. The emperor god by the side said helplessly, Let's see. The Holy Lord sat there calmly and looked in the direction of the Sun Holy Pagoda. Emperor God Redwind, before you leave, we are here to bid farewell to you. In front of the Sun Holy Pagoda, Emperor God Shenwu said to Hong Fengyan with a smile, Oh, then I shall not send you off. Hong Fengyan said faintly, There's no need for Emperor God Redwind to send you off. It's just that we received news that the Dragon King of the Dragon Palace is here and Emperor God Redwind is receiving him. The Emperor God from 8 Desolation looked cold as he sneered. Do I need to report to the two of you who I want to invite? Hong Fengyan replied coldly. Ha ha ha, Emperor God Redwind, in that case, you are determined to become enemies with the Imperial Court, the Witchcraft Association, and the 8 Desolation? Emperor God Shenwu laughed out loud and asked in a cold tone. When the surrounding people heard this, their faces changed. If they were to reply, it would mean that their Emperor God Redwind would have to participate in the war between the Dragon Palace and the 8 Desolation Witchcraft Association. In a war of this level, even an Emperor God would die if they were not careful. If my standpoint requires it, so what if I become enemies? Hong Fengyan replied faintly. Standpoint? Is this your position, Emperor God Hongfeng, or your sanctuary's position? The Emperor God from 8 Desolation stared at Hong Fengyan. Of course it's my standpoint. Yesterday, our Holy Lord also expressed his standpoint. Holy Lord can represent the sanctuary, while I only represent myself. Hong Fengyan replied faintly. All right. Emperor God Red Wind, I have to give you a reminder. You have just become an Emperor God, and you have to learn to be low profile. If you stand on the wrong side, you might even pay with your life, even if you are an Emperor God. The Emperor God from 8 Desolation laughed as he spoke coldly. As this, they are threatening our Emperor God Red Wind. Sigh. Our Emperor God Red Wind is really involved in this mess. Our Emperor God Red Wind is too righteous. Since the Dragon King helped our Emperor God to break through to the Emperor God realm, our Emperor God will stand with the Dragon Palace. The Dragon King is playing with fire. It's fine for you to offend one powerful force in the resplendent starry sky. Now that you have offended 2 or 3, you are digging your own grave. All the experts from the sanctuary whispered with a sullen expression. They shook their heads helplessly. They could not do anything about Emperor God Redwind's choice. Pay with my life? In the room on the top floor of the sacred tower, Wang Xian heard them and revealed a tinge of murderous intent. He walked towards Hong Fengyan and patted her shoulder to get her to move away from the window. Are you guys courting death by threatening the friends of the Dragon King? Wang Xian stood before the window and looked at the 2 Emperor Gods from 8 Desolation. Dragon King. When they saw Wang Xian, they narrowed their eyes. Dragon King, you won't be able to be arrogant for long. Emperor God Xinwu's eyes were filled with hatred and murderous intent as he stared at Wang Xian. Dragon King of the Dragon Palace, the Emperor Gods from 8 Desolation are not easy to kill. Next, you will pay a heavy price. The Emperor God from 8 Desolation said coldly, I think you guys are really courting death. The error-free chapters of the Invincible Divine Dragon Cultivation System will continue to be updated on Green Bean. There will be no advertisements on the website. Please collect and recommend Green Bean. Please collect if you like Invincible Divine Dragon Cultivation System. Invincible Divine Dragon Cultivation System updates the fastest. Chapter 2875. I think you're courting death. Wang Xian stood in front of the sacred pagoda window and stared at the 2 of them. A cold, murderous aura rushed towards them. Oomph! The 2 of them harumphed coldly when they felt Wang Xian's killing intent. They retreated cautiously. Dragon King, wait for our revenge. The 2 of them said in a low voice. You talk too much nonsense. Since you're here, don't think of leaving. Wang Xian looked at them. He moved his body slowly and came out of the window. Buzz. In the next moment, the unbeginning sacred wings appeared behind him. Their expressions changed when they saw Wang Xian flying out. They were on high alert. Dragon King, we will meet again soon. The next time we'll be on the battlefield. God Emperor Xinwu roared with a gloomy face. Go. The 2 of them looked at each other, and with a move of their bodies, they flew back. Since the Dragon Palace had a powerful array master like Tianjun, they had to be careful not to be trapped in the array. Dragon King scared them away. Good. Some of them discussed softly when they saw Dragon King flying out and the 2 God Emperors preparing to leave. Did I allow you to leave? At this time, Wang Xian's voice rang out again. God Emperor Xinwu and God Emperor San Yan's faces turned black. Between God Emperors, it was extremely difficult to kill each other. In the same realm, under the situation of trapping the other party, it would require 3 God Emperors to work together to kill the other party. Without a spatial sealing array, 3 God Emperors could forget about killing a God Emperor of the same level. Even if a second-order God Emperor Realm expert wanted to kill a first-order God Emperor Realm expert, the only way was to catch them off guard and severely injure them. If the other party was prepared, a first-order God Emperor could escape from a second-order God Emperor. Dragon King, don't be arrogant. When Emperor God Xinwu and Emperor God Shan Yin heard what Wang Xian said, they turned around and shouted at him. At the same time, they were on high alert. Go. Without any hesitation, they sped up. Facing the Dragon King, the leader of the Dragon Palace, there was a tinge of fear in their hearts. I said, don't think of leaving since you're here. Seeing that they were trying to escape, Wang Xian's eyes turned cold. Before he could finish his sentence, his body had already disappeared. In the next moment, a scene that no one could have imagined occurred. By the time he finished his sentence, Wang Xian's hands were already on their necks. Emperor God Shenwu and Emperor God Shanyan, who were preparing to leave, were dumbfounded. They did not have the slightest time to react. They did not even sense that the Dragon King had grabbed them by the neck. Both of them trembled and swallowed their saliva. They turned their heads with much difficulty and looked at Wang Xian. Did you know? All of you deserve to die. Wang Xian looked at them and replied without any change in his expression, How is this possible? Their pupils constricted and their faces were filled with shock. How could he capture them before they could even react? What kind of speed was this? They had already raised their guard. Even if it was their Lord God Desolation, even if it was the monarch, it would be hard for them to stay if they were to fight. However, the Dragon King caught them in an instant. They couldn't react to this terrifying speed at all. Isn't the Dragon King a first-order God Emperor? What is going on in front of them? Your speed, your strength. Emperor God Shenwu widened his eyes. His eyes were bloodshot and filled with disbelief. Die. You two are courting death. Wang Xian moved his body. Boom. In the next moment, Wang Xian landed below the sacred tower. Emperor God Shenwu and Emperor God Shan Yin landed heavily on the ground. Wang Xian stepped on both of them with one foot. Their 7 apertures were bleeding and their eyes were wide open. However, there was no sign of life in them. Wang. The surrounding sky of the holy nation changed drastically. A sorrowful wail was heard. Fire clouds rose and the ground trembled. 2 emperor gods had fallen and the sky changed. Gulp. At this moment, everyone around the sacred tower was stunned. Their eyes were wide open as they looked at the scene in shock and horror. From the moment Wang Xian flew out to the moment the 2 emperor gods were about to leave. At the start, they were still discussing to vent their anger. However, the Dragon King wanted them to stay with him. In the next instant, the 2 of them were caught by the Dragon King. In the next instant, the 2 emperor gods' corpses fell below the sacred tower and were stepped on by the Dragon King. No one in the surroundings could see clearly what was going on. When they came to their senses, the 2 emperor gods were already dead. Those are emperor gods. 2 emperor gods. Atop the sacred tower, the saints who were paying close attention to the battle were all trembling. They knew the might of an emperor god. The sanctuary congratulated Emperor God Hongfeng for becoming an emperor. A god emperor was a high and mighty existence, an unparalleled existence. However, 2 emperor gods were killed by the Dragon King of Dragon Palace in an instant before their eyes. In an instant, they could not resist at all. Everyone felt their scalps prickling when they saw this. The 2 emperor gods who threatened Emperor God Hongfeng were dead just like that. Those are 2 emperor gods? Everyone was in disbelief. They had witnessed the fall of 2 emperor gods. How strong is this Dragon King? At this moment, they looked blankly at the Dragon King of Dragon Palace, who was standing there calmly. What kind of existence was that? Untouchable. The faces of the Saint Realm experts in the surroundings were filled with reverence. This was the Dragon King of Dragon Palace. He had risen in such a short period of time. With the strength of Dragon Palace alone, he was not at a disadvantage against the Imperial Court and Witch Alliance. He had even chased them for hundreds of millions of miles. This was the legendary Dragon King of Dragon Palace in the starry sky. How terrifying. SSS, this. At the top of the sacred tower, Emperor Hongfeng Yin, Water God Emperor, and the rest were dumbfounded when they saw Wang Xian kill the 2 emperor gods. Invincible's eyes widened as he pointed below with trembling body. This boss Wang is too heaven-defying. After more than 10 seconds, Invincible Warrior roared in shock. Boom. In the sky above the Holy Mother Pagoda, the Holy Lord and the 4 sacred region god emperors who had been watching the fight stood up when they saw Wang Xian killing Emperor God Shenwu and Emperor God Shanyan. How is this possible? Sacred Lord held the scepter in his hand tightly as he was shocked. He had witnessed the speed of the Dragon King just now. This kind of speed made him feel terrified. The moment the Dragon King made a move, he knew he was no match for him. Moreover, with such terrifying speed, it would not be difficult for the Dragon King to kill him. Those who like the Invincible Divine Dragon Cultivation System, please collect. The Invincible Divine Dragon Cultivation System, Green Beans updates are the fastest, You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.